Hi, I'm Bradley.
And I'm Brendan.
And on today's episode of Story Proof, we are going to be talking about Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City from 2021.
Woo.
So I very distinctly remember us going to see this movie together in theaters. We went to the movie theater at the mall, and I very distinctly remember that I left work early on a Friday to go see it, and there was just something really cool. It was like you're playing hooky from school to go see a movie.
It's also very funny because that particular theater became like our theater for horror movies for a long
Dude,
time.
yes. We saw so many good movies there. Honestly, I go there a lot more than you do because I used to work in the same town. I used to work like 8 minutes away. But yeah, I very distinctly remember us going there to see it. I remember it was kind of weird that when we left, the sun was still up. That's a very weird thing for us because we are not typically go during the day types for movies.
Also, this came out in like November of 2021, so it was like odd that it would be before like 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
Although I guess daylight savings time hadn't happened yet by that point, so
yeah,
maybe it was still like 6 o'clock, but still, that's super early for us.
yeah. It was kind of trippy. I also very distinctly remember when we were leaving, one of the guys that worked there asked me, he's like, "Oh my God, you guys saw Resident Evil. How was it?" And I remember at the time being like, "Look, I love Resident Evil so much that even if it was a dumpster fire, I'd be like, it was the best thing ever." And I stand by that today.
I cannot stand that. Look, this movie's fine. There's stuff in it that's good. Like some of the fan service is good, some of the filmmaking's good, but there's a lot of problems.
Yeah, you just said one of the magic words though is fan service. I know you and I feel very differently about it. I am not gonna lie. You said earlier that there's some good fan service and there's some bad fan service. To me, there is good and there is great. I love it. I love seeing something and being like, oh, they knew that a fan of Resident Evil was going to catch this or catch that or catch this, and there are a billion of those in this movie.
See, sometimes that can work though, and sometimes it almost feels like a crutch.
That's fair.
Like, I mean, there are moments in this movie where you are almost expected to have already been familiar with the source material to know what's going on. There's literally a character in this movie that doesn't get named until after he dies, and you wouldn't know who he was until they say his name unless you played the games. I specifically remember thinking he was a different character when we first saw this movie in theaters until they actually said his name right after he died.
Yeah, I only caught his name when I was watching from home because the subtitles straight up put it in parentheses. I'm like, wait, that's who that is? I never caught that before.
So like I said, there's some solid moments of fan service, and we'll talk about that, like locations and just aspects that are pulled straight from the games visually, and like they can work and they look really great. But there's stuff that just is.
Yeah, I will say a lot of people, we even talked earlier about a review of this calling this a faithful adaptation. I beg to disagree in the nicest way possible. I think that they had a lot of fan service in this and then they put their own twist on pretty much everything, which unfortunately for a lot of fans of Resident Evil are going to be like, well, why would they do this? The character's supposed to be like this, or this is supposed to be this way. But almost every character in this is not really what you expect from the games. Even the location, Raccoon City in this looks almost like a pretty good sized town. It's not the big skyscrapers and type things that we're used to. Even a little bit of a spoiler alert if you somehow weren't aware of this, even when it ends and Raccoon City gets destroyed, it gets destroyed in a different way than we've seen up to this point. It's usually the big nuclear missile coming in, boom. This one, it pretty much just eats itself. And that poor flying cow.
Yeah, I don't know. There are reasons for that too. Obviously, uh, this movie was produced during COVID, so it suffered from the regulations and the issues that were prevalent in obviously having people on a movie set in close proximity to one another during a pandemic. So it really disrupted the movie making industry for a good while there. Just the nature of the thing. And then like the movie had its budget cut in half from when it first started being produced to when it finally came out, which resulted in a lot of different streamlining and script changes and everything else. Originally, there were a lot more characters from the movies. Characters that existed had totally different personalities from what ended up in the final movie.
Yeah.
And it's just the usual movie making stuff that goes into it. So to an extent, I don't blame director Johannes Roberts for that so much, nor do I blame the screenwriters.
Yeah, there just becomes a lot of this movie where you're like, oh, I know the way this is going to go. And then you're like, oh, nope, I was wrong. Oh, I remember this character. Oh, they're dead. Oh, I remember this. Nope.
Yeah.
I will say, as we talk about this movie, I just want to make a friendly reminder that there is the difference between thinking something is good and liking something. For example, I really like this movie. I do. I enjoy it. I love the fan service. There are some things that I almost hate about this movie that I just question why on earth this ever happened this way. I don't necessarily know if I would say this is a good movie. Honestly, yes, I do. I would not say this is a particularly good movie. I enjoy it. I like this movie, but I like a lot of movies that are bad movies. That doesn't make them any less enjoyable to me.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of like movies that I know are bad that I actually enjoy. It doesn't bring thing anything to it. I've said before in previous episodes, you know, a lot of this art form, filmmaking, storytelling, is subjective. There are things that I like that you don't like, and there are things that you like that I don't like. And there's things that everybody else might like that neither of us will like or will like.
Yeah.
Everything is subjective to an extent, and everybody has their own tastes and likes and dislikes, and nobody is necessarily inherently wrong in that manner. There are some things that are objectively bad, though.
Yeah, so when we talk about this movie, I don't want it to sound like we're bashing this movie because I think we both enjoy the movie, but there are definitely some things that need to be pointed out.
You definitely enjoy this movie a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I said we, I'm like, maybe we shouldn't have said that.
This one's a bit of a slog for me, honestly.
The parts that I like, I really, really like. So, I mean, at least I've got that going for me. But yeah, so if you haven't seen this movie, I would advise it. Again, if you are a Resident Evil fan, which if you have been keeping up with us at this point, I would imagine you probably are. But there are so many things. There are even a lot of callbacks in this to things that we have specifically mentioned in our previous episodes where we talked about Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3. If you didn't know, this movie does kind of mash up Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3. So it is the Spencer Mansion. It is the stuff that goes on at Raccoon City. It gets a little weird with the inclusion of 3 because there's no Nemesis in this. Jill is just part of the STARS unit going to the Spencer Mansion. Other than that, it doesn't really have any kind of like story points from 3. It really is just 1, 2, and like soft 3 because Jill's here and Raccoon City gets destroyed.
Yeah, and this is really fun. Really a fun way to kind of wrap up our initial discussion of like the first portion of Resident Evil.
Yeah,
and sort of transition us into our movie and analysis portion of the show.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get into this and really talk about.
Me too. So I guess we should just start with the first part of the movie. Again, if you haven't seen this, you definitely should. I highly advise it. Brendan slightly advises it.
Spoilers ahead.
Yeah. I also will say I believe you watched this on Amazon, you said?
Yeah.
I own this on Vudu. I'm sure this will probably be streaming a few other places, but if you haven't watched it, you definitely should because there are some spoilers ahead for Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3 and the movie itself.
So the movie opens up on our first bit of fan service. The Raccoon City Orphanage, circa 1980s.
Yep, gonna hit it right off the bat.
And you know it's the 80s because you see an orderly watching the Golden Girls.
Yeah, there are a lot of great timestamps in this movie that you're like, yep, this is absolutely the time frame that they're saying it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the orphanage, much like we see it later on down the road. But at this point, it is full up and running. Almost every bed has a child in it. And it still looks creepy, though. So at least there's that.
Well, it's an orphanage in a horror movie. It has to look creepy.
Yep, it'd be weird if it looked normal.
Yeah. It's even filled with lots of, like, children's choir music, which makes it doubly creepy for the score. So top 10, top-notch points for that one.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So we go forward into the little bedroom. All the kids are in, like, little bunk beds and everything else. And most of them are filled out. There's one that we kind of focus on that's empty. And it turns out it's these two kids who are sharing a bed together, and they're having a conversation. You kind of get the feeling, yeah, they're probably related to one another. Brother, sister, probably.
Yeah.
And they're worried, and the brother is worried about, somebody one of the guys who's in charge of the orphanage, basically finding out that that she's not in her own bed.
Yep, and we do get a name drop of Birkin.
If you know anything about Resident Evil 2, that's a pretty big name.
Yep, and I want to take a second to point out that what just happened is going to happen roughly 800,000 more times in this movie. They are obsessed with giving you a character's last name and then somewhere down the road in the movie, then giving you the first name. I went back through it once just to make sure. Not a single character in this movie is introduced with their first name. Every single one of them is introduced by their last name. One of the guys, you don't even hear his first name until after he's dead. They are obsessed with this, and this is the first time we get it. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor is the only one that we get first name and last name.
And that leads us into the girl happens to catch wind of a sound in the distance, maybe some rattling breath or something like that. And she sees a figure hiding out in the shadows and decides to follow it.
Because that's always a good idea.
Precocious kids. She follows through the halls of the orphanage. Not very well staffed, apparently.
Nope,
orphanage.
It's just Golden Girl. That's pretty much it at this point.
So she follows along through the corridors, meets no resistance, and they end up in another room, a sort of a playroom area inside of the orphanage. And there's this tent there, and you see Lisa Trevor, basically.
Yeah, you see something.
It's Lisa Trevor looking... It's a pretty good translation from how she appears in the Resident Evil 1 remake.
Yeah.
And you find out it's Lisa Trevor because she's got her little hospital wristband on. And she's just hanging out here in the orphanage.
Yeah, there is this kind of interesting thing with the name tag where it seems like she can understand but not speak as well. Because as soon as Claire says, what's your name, she immediately holds out her arm with the name tag on it.
Yeah, she's certainly not as feral in this movie as she appears in Resident Evil 1.
Yeah.
Which probably serves the plot more than anything else going forward.
Yeah, I will say that Lisa Trevor, I think, is one of the better points of this movie for me. I think they do a really good job of portraying her as just a very sympathetic character without her being like a raging beast the whole time.
Yeah, her story is she's an interesting part of the story of this movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, Lisa and Claire start to develop a little bit of a friendship.
Yeah.
In this moment. I mean, it's probably pretty easy for Lisa to glom on to the first person to show her any sort of like genuine kindness, especially given what she probably went through.
Yep.
So Claire looks away for a second, and when she looks back, Lisa's gone. So the only indication of where Lisa might have gone is Claire asked her where she goes or where she lives, and she writes on a piece of paper below.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this point now, Lisa's gone, and all Claire sees is this creepy doll. That's another piece of fan service. It's a direct translation from Resident Evil 2 remake. It's the doll that when you play the orphanage portion as Sherry during Claire's campaign, the one that she pulls a block out of to help solve a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so at this point, Claire tries to crawl into the tent to kind of figure out where Lisa's at, and then she gets yanked out of the tent by Birkin. Basically wants to know what Claire is up to because, they're obviously very stringent about the rules if her brother was, worried that they'd find her in his bed. And they'd get freaked out about that. Birkin, we should mention, played by veteran actor Neil McDonough.
Oh, yes.
He's pretty much known for playing a villain in most everything that he has been in. He's been a hero in a couple of big things like Captain America.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was writing down a number of notable things all of these guys are in, I was like, oh, villain. Oh, he dies. He's was Damien Dark in Arrow. He was in Walking Tall. He was in the TV show Suits, Minority Report, and yes, he was in Captain America. He's one of those people that unfortunately a lot of people would recognize, but not as many people know his name.
Yeah, just like I said, veteran character actor. And you're going to come across a couple more of those as we go along in this.
I was going to say, he is not the only one in this movie.
I personally think that he's okay for this role if it were written better.
Yeah, that was one thing that we talked about with the casting in this is I can't tell if I think maybe he was miscast or if really the movie just didn't really know what to do with him. Yeah. But when we started looking into it and you start reading about, the budget cuts and the changes and COVID just absolutely fucking this movie over, it kind of makes sense. If you were going to triage one character's writing and story and scenes, probably be Birkin.
Oh, yeah. No, they triaged everybody's.
Yeah.
The characters as they are written in this movie were nowhere near what they were much closer to their to what they were portrayed as in the games.
Yeah.
Than what they ended up in this final cut. But he's asking Claire what she's doing out of bed, what she's up to, and her brother comes in and says that she's been sleepwalking.
Yep.
Since their parents died. And so that sort of just convinces Birkin, hey, that's probably just what was happening. And this is where you get the full reveal, if you haven't figured it out already, that these siblings are Claire and Chris Redfield.
But yet again, he says, oh, the Redfield children, Chris and Claire. Yet again, last name first.
You'll find out that Bradley's really upset.
Dude, it's such a thing. It's one of those things where it's like, I feel like it's one of those things where if you maybe have a crush on someone and they drive like a bright red car, it's like all of a sudden everywhere you go, everywhere you're like, oh my God, there are bright red cars everywhere. Have I just never noticed these before? It's exactly what it is. It's one of those things. That's a very specific example, but
just one of those things that you don't notice until you notice it, and then you notice it all the time.
Yeah, then you can't stop seeing it. It was like once I picked up, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. When he said the Redfields, I was like, that's a weird way to do that, but all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are, by the way, important characters in this. They never even get named.
I also want to point out at this moment, as we're about to leave the orphanage, that this orphanage is filled with, Umbrella propaganda.
Yeah.
There are posters on the walls that are an umbrella will fix you in the rain, will protect you from the rain.
Umbrella is your new family.
Umbrella is your new family.
They are not.
Umbrella is not even trying to be subtle in this universe.
Laying it on thick.
Umbrella in the games is at least trying to put on a veneer that they're not an evil organization. This one is running a cult or something.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
This
100%.
This is insane.
Yeah.
So they go back to So Chris takes Claire back to the bedrooms. They get back in their beds. Birkin comes in to sort of supervise and make sure everything's okay. One more time, just being Birkin.
Being the child wrangler that he is.
And then once he leaves, Claire wakes up again and finds the doll on her bed.
Mm-hmm.
And who should be waiting at the foot of her bed but her new friend, Lisa.
Oh my god.
And it's at this point that we smash cut, and it was all a dream.
Oh, thank God.
We smash cut to adult Claire inside a tanker.
Yep. And we start just getting references and nods to Resident Evil stuff. I mean, just boom, boom, boom. The fact that if you guys watched the previous episodes, when I was obsessed with the burger on the dashboard of the big rig, I talked about it probably a bit too much. That's fine.
You definitely did.
Dude, that was the first moment I was like, this game is beautiful. It's weird that it was a burger, but it's whatever. So the driver of this big rig that Claire is driving in is driving a big rig. That's going to be important later. We see the burger on the dashboard. He has a dog in the cab with him. Oh my goodness. It's a Rottweiler. The Resident Evil dog.
Yeah. Before we move further, important to note, Claire is played as an adult by Kaya Scodelario.
Mm-hmm.
She is known for
the Maze Runner movies, and I know her from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, she was in the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean movie. She was the
Barbossa's daughter.
Spoiler alert
for... Well, no, that movie's been out for a while.
There might be some people who haven't watched it. It took me like 3 years to watch it.
Well, that's not my fault. It kind of is, but still.
But yes, she played
the horologist.
Yes.
That's a good joke in the movie.
Yes. And she's fine here. The character of Claire is not particularly well written, and she does what she can with it.
Yeah, there are a lot of moments where I'm like, ooh, that's good. And then literally the next scene, I'm like, ooh, that's bad. Yeah. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that I do think she's doing a good job with it, but it's just one of those things that's going to keep coming up in this, where it's like, why? It's just a question of why.
And yeah, there's an alternate version of this script and this character where she could have knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And she still does for what she has.
Yeah.
But it's just not well written.
No.
And that's a problem for a good chunk of this movie, is that the writing is very much just subpar.
Yeah.
Like this entire introduction with the truck driver is basically just bad exposition.
Yeah. He also gets really creepy with her and doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she has a line until she says, like, look out.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is, like, the driver is like, what are you doing out in the rain anyway? Oh, that's right. You said that you used to live here. Your brother lives there, he said. You're going into the city to see him, you said.
I like your impression of the truck driver voice.
Like, it's just the most blatantly bad exposition that you could get in a movie.
What is really funny is it didn't fully hit me until you did your beautiful impression of the truck driver, that if you play video games, it is literally the way that people talk to you at the beginning of the game if you're playing the silent protagonist. If your character doesn't talk, they'll write stuff just like that so that they can make it sound like you said it even though you didn't say it. Which is weird because Claire can talk.
So the truck driver is trying to convince Claire, hey, you don't need to go see your brother. You don't need to go to Raccoon City. You should just go to this other town that's nearby with me.
He's so creepy.
Like, he's creeping on Claire pretty good. And then it's at this point that he's not watching the road, and Claire tells him to watch out because a woman just crosses the road. And
dude, It's going to be a little messed up, but like the practical effect of it, I like the fact that he was driving so fast that because a lot of big rigs have a very flat front, she is like plastered across the front for a while.
Yeah, you can actually see her kind of attached to the bumper, basically the front of the rig. And
dude, it looks
like
good.
Her hair's flying and everything else. Like, yeah, there's some good effects, practical effects in this movie. We'll talk about the CGI later.
It's fine. But yeah, he hits her. I mean, dude, it is just full steam ahead. Eventually, the truck slows down enough and comes to a stop that she just gets flung off the front, is laying in the road. Yeah. He is freaking out. I feel like somewhat appropriately.
Oh, yeah, obviously, if you hit somebody in the middle of the road, yeah, you're going to, be a little freaked out.
I do love that he's like, oh my God, I hit her. And then he's like, why was she out here? And I'm like, you know what? I feel like that's a good point.
It's a valid question, but at the end of the day, then he goes into, like, trying to get Claire in on, oh, well, we're not going to tell anybody about it, right? It's not my fault, right? And it's like, just...
Yeah, that turned shitty fast, but I do like the fact just oh my god, why was she here? that would have been me. I'd have been like freaking out and then immediately be like, all right, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's true. So then Claire's like, we need to get a tarp or something to wrap the body, take it into town. My brother's a cop. This freaks out the driver even more, and they're distracted enough in all of this that the woman starts to get up and walk off.
She makes some weird noises too.
Yeah, there's some weird noises. And it turns out she's a zombie.
She's a something.
And we'll keep this in mind for later, she just kind of wanders off. She doesn't even try to, like, attack either Claire or the driver or anything, which is odd. Yeah. It's odd given future context. At this point, then, the driver's dog actually comes out and starts licking up like the blood and guts from the zombie woman, and that's when the driver and Claire notice, hey, this thing's not here. Where'd she go?
Yeah, I exactly wrote in my notes, then the moron lets his dog lick the blood up from the obviously zombie woman. Like, come on, man.
I mean, not obviously zombie,
not normal. Well, she got hit by a big rig and walked it off.
I mean, obviously, but adrenaline does weird stuff to people sometimes, though.
But yeah, we get this weird thing that when we talked earlier about, taking a bit of a twist on everything, the quote-unquote zombies in this movie, I don't tend to like them. This one is standing off in the woods at a distance close enough that we can see her and it's creepy, but far enough away that the characters realistically can't be like, oh, she's right over there.
Yeah, I don't know. That comes back to a little bit of some of the directional choices of the film's director, Johannes Roberts, and his cinematography style. I know he originally chose to try to shoot this movie in the vein of like Carpenter's 70s and 80s movies, so like Halloween, Assault on Precinct 13, sort of having a more gritty 70s and 80s feel to it, which I can say he accomplishes. I would say that the cinematography is very similar to sort of a Halloween-esque thing, but this is particularly a scene where he takes a wide shot and he just sort of slowly zooms in on where the zombie woman is in the shadows, and then he takes one back from the zombie's point of view looking at Claire framed in between two trees, and it's the purpose of the shot is to really let you sit there and let the sort of tension linger and make you feel uncomfortable, and it's somewhat effective, but it's a trick that he's applied already in like the orphanage stuff, and he'll continue to do it several times throughout the movie moving forward. And yeah, that plays into that issue you have with like the zombies and them being just far enough away but not far enough away. And
yeah, also it's just like the zombies in general in this movie. I just don't tend to like them. Like, I like the movie, but there are a few that I think are good moments or good zombies, particularly in the Spencer Mansion. That's the first time where I'm like, these are zombies.
Yeah,
cool. But yeah, so we now cut away from Claire to, oh boy, who should have been my favorite character, because I'm not sure if I specifically said this in the Resident Evil 2 video we did. Leon is my all-time favorite video game character. I mean, he is, to me, he's just the best. I grew up playing 2 and a lot of 4. I love Leon. Not in this movie. Leon is just, they just treat him like shit the whole movie.
Yeah, if there's one character that gets done dirty the most in this movie, it's Leon. He's just made to look like an idiot, and he becomes just the basest form of comic relief, and it just does not work.
No.
But that's a common theme with most of the characters, and we'll be meeting some more shortly, where the dynamics and the choices they had to make to streamline the plot just kind of eviscerate whatever character we know from video games.
I would definitely say he's one of the top 2. There are 2 that are like pretty egregious forms of that. He's definitely one of them.
And who would you say is the other? Wesker, yeah.
I love Tom Hopper, and I kind of like this version of Wesker, but it's one of those like hashtag not my Wesker moments.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I also feel like Claire is really done a disservice in terms of her character.
This is one thing where you have always liked Claire in the games more than me. I like Claire, but for me in this one, I honestly think that most of what she does is fine enough that I can roll with it.
I think it's fine from what was written. It just isn't at all like the Claire in the video games.
That is fair.
And in the same way that Leon is your favorite character, so you have that attachment, Claire has been my favorite character. So I have that same feeling.
We're both very protective over different parts of this. Yeah, that is fair.
So, but yeah, so you meet Leon in a hotel. He wakes up. He's got a hangover, and he immediately takes a swig from a beer. Yeah. Which is a nice callback to his original sort of backstory in the original Resident Evil 2, where he misses his first day because he wakes up drunk in a motel because he had just broken up with his girlfriend the night before, the Raccoon City incident.
Yeah, and then I think a pretty good number of people would have seen this. I will say I like the Resident Evil live-action movies. I love the animated movies. I'm not usually a big fan of animated versions of things, but when we see Leon in Resident Evil Vendetta from 2017, when you meet him in there, he's just kind of a broken person. I mean, he's more or less drinking himself into an early grave.
I mean, rightfully so, given what they've all gone through.
Dude, that is one where I love, because everyone's like, we got to keep going. And Leon's like, do we? Like, every time we win, it just keeps going. I'm like, he makes a good point. So yeah, it is interesting that is a kind of through line for different versions of this character. Yeah. Where, in this one, you don't have to show him, drinking liquor bottle after bottle. It's just the fact that he wakes up and immediately takes a swig from a beer. You're like, all right, it's a little moment for him.
And we should note Leon here is played by Avon Jogia. I hope I pronounced that right.
I was like, dude, we apologize if we mispronounced some of the names. We are doing our best.
I know he's been in a few things. I know he was in
Zombieland Double Tap. That's the only thing I know him from. He was Berkeley.
He was very good in Zombieland Double Tap. I know he was in Nickelodeon show Victorious, I believe. I never watched it. That was a little after my time, Nickelodeon-wise. I think those were some of his bigger credits. And to his credit, when I've seen him, he's good. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
He was just done dirty with what he was given in this material.
I think the actor was done dirty and the character. And I think that's really what kind of sinks it.
Yeah, and he did the absolute best with what he had. Like, I do not blame him one bit for anything that has to do with this character.
He still has a few pretty good moments, but most of it, he's just kind of like the punching bag of the movie.
Yeah. So, I want to be clear. Any criticism we have is not towards Avon Joya,
No.
the actor. The criticism we have is towards the writing and the character as depicted in this film. So, anyway, cut to Leon in a diner.
Just straight up asleep on the bar.
He's passed out, and you see this movie's Albert Wesker, played by Tom Hopper.
I love him so much.
And he's placing a, classic diner ketchup bottle on Leon's head.
Yeah, and this is yet again where we get last names first. We get the name drop for Wesker. We see he's there with two other people. One of them gets the last name Valentine. I wonder who she could be.
Yeah, but one of them doesn't get a name drop, Bradley.
I know, he does. After he dies, later on.
I spent most of this movie thinking it was Barry Burton.
Yeah, that's fair. 100% fair. If it was not for the subtitles, I would not have known who it was. So yeah, we do have 3 members of the STARS unit hanging out in this diner. They are messing with Leon. So yeah, so Wesker puts the bottle of ketchup on his head, bets Jill $10 that you can't shoot it off. And she pulls out a real gun. He's like, whoa, no, are you kidding me? Yeah. Pulls out this like kind of cute little toy gun that shoots a little like suction cup thing on it. And he's like, I'll bet you $10 you can't knock that off with it. And she's like, I'll bet you $20 I can move the cat. Her exact phrasing is, I can move the bottle without looking. And he's like, I'll bet. She immediately shoots Wesker in the forehead with the gun and then just chucks the gun at Leon, who immediately wakes up and is like, what the fuck?
It's admittedly kind of a funny moment. Here again, I have issues with the characterization.
Yeah,
because in the games, Jill was never like the hothead who would shoot first and ask questions later.
Yeah, and Wesker wasn't a person. Wesker, dude, that is one thing. Like, I love Tom Hopper. By the way, if you guys don't maybe recognize the name, he was in Game of Thrones. He's, I think, at this point, very well known for the Umbrella Academy. I knew him in the TV show Merlin. He's a very big, broad-shouldered guy. He's a very, I think, honestly, I love him in just about everything.
He's very talented.
Yeah. This version of Wesker is just weird because even when Wesker was a, like, quote-unquote regular person in the games, he was so almost machine-like. Like, it's kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger at the Terminator, where he looks like a person, doesn't really act like one.
Yeah. So
it is a little weird to have him having, like, nice character moments. He has some later. He shows remorse later. All of that is a little weird for Wesker. So he's the one where I'm like, I get them wanting to maybe take a twist on the character or try a different route. I don't think it works for him.
Well, I think the main reason that he has that sort of character twist in this version of the story is that they're trying to play up this sort of will they, won't they thing with him and Jill.
That's fair.
And it's just weird. It's just weird, especially knowing who the characters are and changing. In this one, Wesker is just another STARS agent. He's not the like captain
leader
or anything like
mastermind.
That. Like, he's just another cop, basically.
Yeah.
In the unit. And Jill, as we said, was there as well. She's played by Hannah John Kamen, who is probably best known for being in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I disagree. I think she is most well known for her fantastic voice acting in a DLC for Dark Souls 1, and most importantly, she is the voice. Stop giving me that look. I think it's cool. She is the voice of Shalquar in Dark Souls 2, which, if you guys don't maybe know the name, she's the cat in Majula that you can talk to. I think that is fascinating that the person who plays Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp voices one of my favorite characters in Dark Souls 2, because it's not a game where you introduce a lot of talking cats.
Mm-hmm.
I say that's not true. There's pretty much one per game, but still, I think that's really cool. But yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. She is Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp. What I mentioned earlier about Tom Hopper being in Game of Thrones, he was in 4 episodes of Game of Thrones, and she was in 2. And I just find that interesting.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you're looking at a cast of Game of Thrones, you're probably going to find a lot of different projects that these people have been in together.
100%.
Like, the cast of Game of Thrones was just so expansive.
Yep. But yeah, we are very much introduced to them. There is a third person with them. We can go ahead and say that it's Richard Aiken.
Yes, Richard.
Yeah, so he's the one that later on we get him called Aiken a few times. And then after he's dead, later on is when someone says Richard, and you're like, who is that? In context, you can figure it out. But he's the one that you don't get his first name until after he's dead.
And this gentleman was played by Chad Rook, whom I don't have very much extra information on. He, as the sort of secondary character, he was good for what he had. But it's just, his character has done a bit of disservice by not being given that proper due in the same way that all the other leads are until right around the time that he dies.
Yeah, and he also, 2 characters do something in this movie that really bothers me. And we're going to talk about it when we get to his end, because it just, it bothers me.
Yeah. So, at this point, Jill has already thrown the gun at Leon, woke him up, and then 2 other officers come into the...
You just missed a reference. Jill Sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, you can't miss Jill Sandwich!
Sorry. Part of the... So Jill has knocked the bottle off of Leon's head, technically, by just, wailing on him with a gun.
I love it.
A plastic toy gun.
I, too, am a fan of technicalities.
And so, Wesker owes her, $20?
What, $20? And then there's this great moment where she goes and takes his sandwich and takes a bite, and he's like, I guess I'm paying. And she's like, well, it's a Jill sandwich now. Yeah. That's the one where I'm like, all right, that's a bit much.
That's one of the crutches that I was referring to earlier. Like, yeah, it's a fun little in-joke for fans of the games and fans of the franchise because, it came out as that weird translation in Resident Evil 1 between Barry and Jill, and it is fun every time I play it to listen to it. But
I love it.
It's definitely a crutch that they...
It's a little weird.
It's a very weird moment.
Yeah.
Delivered the best they can.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is they don't sit on it.
Yeah.
It's just it's almost a throwaway line in the sense that if you didn't know what it is, you would just be like, no, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
And then just keep on trucking.
Yeah.
But yeah, then pretty much immediately we do have 2 police officers come in, and they, the way that they're dressed, they look like just regular police officers. They're not wearing any kind of like STARS uniforms or anything.
Yeah. But apparently they are the Bravo team for STARS.
Yep. Even though they just look like regular cops.
I mean, they are named Dooley and Marini, which are 2 of the names of the STARS officers from Bravo team that you encounter during Resident Evil 1.
Yeah, so they come in just trying to get some coffee to go. We get 2 different things here. One is we get a little bit of backstory for Leon. We also get Leon's first name for the first time. So we find out that in this particular continuity, he... Dude, stop sighing. It's fine.
No, it's just... This is another example of just...
Poor Leon.
Not just poor Leon, but just poorly written exposition.
Yeah, so... They mentioned that he shot his partner in the academy in the ass, and his dad is a really high up in the police department and got him this post to like save him.
And this is just another further example of just sort of goofing up Leon. That's the best I can say. It is just goofing up Leon, like making him the butt of every joke. These guys are
The
Like-
butt. He
like-
shot his partner in the ass. The butt.
Like, even as these two officers are leaving, they say, "Oh, we got to go check out this body that was being eaten or something up
Say
in the
chewed on.
Arklay Mountains, chewed on in
They
the Arklay
say
Mountains."
Spencer Mansion.
At the Spencer Mansion.
Yeah.
And then as they're walking out, one of them is like,
don't
"Oh,
shoot, don't shoot, I'm unarmed.
Like,
I'm pretty sure when he leaves, Leon's like, fucking assholes.
he does.
I love it.
He does. And then it's at this point that Wesker and company all leave to go to the station because they're on duty that night as the members of Star's Alpha Team. And Jill does have a nice little moment where she goes up to Leon and is like, hey, don't judge us too harshly. We're fine once you get to know us.
Yeah,
You're
she's
just
like, we're not all bad.
Yeah, you're just a rookie cop, so it's a little bit of hazing,
Fun fact, this is the first time we get Jill's first name. I'm not letting that go. I will say we're almost done with it, but she says I'm Jill Valentine. This is the first time you get Jill.
Is this also technically outside of the Paul W.S. Anderson films that Jill and Leon share a scene together in a movie?
I honestly don't even know if they do in the Anderson films.
I know everybody made such a big deal about Death Island being the first one where everybody like really teamed up together, but I guess technically this might be the first time that
It
Jill
might
and
be.
Leon come together. These two.
Technically they are both together at the end of, oh my god, which one was it? The one before Final Chapter.
Yeah.
That has a moment where everyone, even in Wesker, like everyone's there to fight. But then the next movie picks up, and it's all done.
Yeah.
You don't even get to see the cool fight. I haven't seen Final Chapter yet.
I don't know. I just thought it was a funny little quirk that these two characters, or these two versions of these two characters that are so iconic and so beloved by so many people have wanted to see in a property together for so long. This might be the first time they've been together and interacted.
Yeah. They don't have many interactions in this either. But it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get her first name. She says we're not all bad. I literally wrote down, sure, that's believable. So yeah, the two cops leave to go look on a body that's been chewed on at the Spencer Mansion. That's not creepy at all. There's so many things in this where they're just like, yeah, body that was chewed on. Here in a minute, we're going to have a thing where I wrote down waitress. We were talking about this earlier. I'm not 100% sure what she is. She is working the bar section of a diner. She seems to be the only one there. So I was like, I don't know if she's waitress, hostess, cook, owner. I don't know.
Well, remember right after the title card, prior to meeting Leon, we got more exposition from a little superimposed text telling us that this was Raccoon City, that this was an umbrella-run facility.
Yeah.
And that
Once
everybody
they started pulling out.
and everybody's poor and everything else. Again, all of this information has already been communicated to us through the opening scene at the orphanage.
Yeah.
And through the opening scene with the Claire and the truck driver. So why are we getting a superimposed?
Third time's the charm, baby.
Just more exposition telling us exactly what we know already. But sorry,
it's fine.
Sorry for my little digression.
But this is one of the dumbest fucking parts of this movie. Is he's sitting there and they kind of like talk for just a minute. She's like, "Did you really shoot your partner?" He's like, yeah." And then he's like, "Hey, your eye's bleeding." And you look, and it is. She has blood coming from her eye.
Yeah.
She wipes it away, and she's like, "I'm sure it's nothing. It's been doing that for a while." And I wrote down, fucking, that's how you react to that? Your eye is bleeding. And she's like, "I'm sure it's nothing." Like, what the fuck?
I mean, maybe she doesn't have very good health insurance as a waitress in a diner. I don't know.
But of all the places in your body to be bleeding from, that's like top 2 for me. Like, come on, man, that's your eye, and it's got blood coming out of it. Don't start thinking about the second thing on my list. But as they are there, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, that's weird." They hear a very loud thump noise, and they both look to the window where they heard the thump from. they don't see anything. But then the camera pans out a bit, and we see a bird on the ground that is not having a good time.
A very poorly CGI'd bird.
It is not good. It is really, dude. Oh God. I think there are 3 like CGI monstrosities in this movie, and that's one of them. After that, we see the infamous Big Rig return to the scene.
Yeah, he drops off Claire, and he makes one last plea, like, "Hey, we're not going to talk about this. We got our story straight. We're not going to do this thing."
I'm pretty sure she's just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
She just leaves. I specifically wrote down, boy, she abandons this truck at the right time. Because then the driver turns around. He's talking to his dog about, like, he's kind of being nice to his dog. And this dog just freaking chomps on his hand, dude.
Well, because his eyes are all blued over. And
yeah,
like,
when he looks at the dog, I'm like, how are you not like, this dog's fucked up. There is yellow liquid leaking from this dog's eyes.
Well, to be fair, he did have enough, like, foresight to say, you know, "Oh, you're not getting sick on me, are you?"
Yeah, after he talked to the dog for like 10 seconds, and then the dog bit him. He's like, maybe I shouldn't have let my dog lick that woman's blood off the road. He's dumb. He deserves it. But anyway, we then go past that. He has been chomped. He is not feeling great. And then we see Claire knocking on the door to what, at this point, you can pretty safely assume is Chris's house.
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire reason that she's said she's coming to Raccoon City, is to see Chris, talk to Chris.
Yep. We do have yet another scene where someone is off in the distance just staring at our beautiful Claire. There is a small child who is just death glaring her, and then what you can probably safely assume is his mom comes up behind him. They are not looking great.
No.
So even with the waitress character, even though she's got blood coming from her eye, she still looks fairly normal. All the other residents we've seen up to this point look fairly normal. The woman who's got hit by the big rig, she didn't look great even before she was hit by the big rig, but still. The look that they kind of give the people for this, and I don't want to sound insensitive when I say this, but when someone maybe like starts chemotherapy and they start losing their hair, that's almost like the look that they try to go with.
Yeah.
Where they're not bald, but they are obviously losing their hair in an unnatural way.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. You know, that is a good thing, I think, because it immediately portrays the look of sickness without having to do a ton of makeup or a ton of prosthetic work. Really just that one thing. I'm like, it kind of works.
Yeah.
At a glance, you can be like, something's not right there.
Yeah, it's very clear that there's something wrong with these two people, that there's some sort of sickness going on. And the mother closes the curtains on her child, and so that Claire can't, like, see them, they can't look out.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a scene.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, yet again, they're just setting stuff up that maybe it's not how I would have done it, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
It portrays that something isn't going well here, just in case the dog biting people and the blood from the eye and the people being hit by big rigs wasn't enough.
Yeah. So, at this point now, Claire knocks on the door. Chris isn't answering, so she pulls out a knife and lock picks her way in.
It kills me. She has what looks like one of the old timer knives, but it's huge, and she just nonchalantly flips it out and then breaks into his house. I'm like, what kind of? And he even mentions it's like a single lock deadbolt.
Yeah.
How did she lock? Did she just like straight up chop it off the door?
I kind of assumed that she like jammed it into the door jamb and just kind of shimmied it until the thing came open.
Yeah, but
they call it a lock picking though, and like
it's not.
It's not.
It's a deadbolt. You can't even pick it like that. You have to. Anyway, it's fine. It's whatever.
So she gets into the house, and she starts looking around. She finds, like, I guess, days old pizza.
Dude,
she takes a bite.
one of my favorite parts of this movie is that she sees pizza on a plate, she picks it up, takes a bite. While chewing, she then sniffs it. I'm like, that's not the order you do that in. You sniff it first.
But and then right immediately after, she finds a photograph of Jill, Chris, and Wesker
Yep.
together.
I like this too.
On like a shelf or something, and she makes a comment about how Chris is still pining after Jill, and it's not going to happen.
I like it.
So now not only do we have a weird and unnecessary romance angle with Wesker and Jill, now we have a love triangle that they're trying to force on us.
Well, a one-sided one, but yes.
Well, a lot of love triangles are inherently one-sided on one side or another.
Okay, that's fair. What she does next is a little weird. I feel like this scene right here, like once she enters the house up to when Chris comes down the stairs, I feel like this is one of those things where this one scene perfectly illustrates kind of the issue I have with this movie. I think her coming in, you're immediately like, okay, even past the lockpick, whatever, fine. She does the thing with the pizza, and there's a little bit of, that's kind of funny in the sense that she sniffs it and she's like, oh, that's gross. I'm like, well, you just ate it. She sees the picture with Jill, Wesker, and Chris, and she makes the comment about, oh, you still pine after Jill. So you get a little bit of a character moment from there, and it's simple, it's fast, it's done. And then she decides to put on her brother's football helmet and stare at a picture of him in Birkin, and that's where I'm just like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what exactly the point of that is either.
Yeah, it's like, one of those things where like you see a scene going and you're like, okay, this is whatever. Okay, this is good. Yeah. Okay, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah. Like the portion obviously with the picture of Wesker and Chris together is to establish, okay, they have some sort of relationship to one another.
Because I will say one thing that is good about that as well, where it's one of those things where when you think through it, oh, Chris is probably in Stars.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see him with them at the diner. He's here. But it is a good thing about like, oh, okay, they're probably together.
And
working together, not together.
And this is a picture of him like graduating from the police academy, so it establishes at least that, he is a cop, like Claire had said before. Yeah. So it gives you kind of that idea of like maybe he's Stars or something like that.
Yeah,
like you said.
The fact that he is with Birkin, I mean, the nice thing is there is a moment later on where I'll go ahead and say that when he encounters Sherry, she immediately hugs him. She knows who he is, and that's kind of set up with the fact that he was shown in pictures with Birkin.
Yeah.
So it is fair.
So naturally,
granted, there's also 10 people in this town, so it's probably not hard to know everyone.
But it does establish that he probably knows Sherry in some capacity, one way or another.
But yeah, the football helmet. I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the point of that was.
Dude, it kills me. There's a Meatloaf music video where mid-song he puts on a football helmet for like a guitar solo and then takes it off. I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
But then Chris comes down the stairs and he's just incredibly nonchalant about finding a person whom he may or may not know just randomly standing in his house.
Wearing his football helmet, staring at pictures on his bookshelf.
Like, even if he can tell that it's Claire with the helmet on and stuff like that, like
it's weird.
And he's just like, and this is a cop. Like, he's just like, what are you doing? Like, if I walked down the stairs from taking a shower and I found someone random in my house, I'd be a little less.
Brendan's gonna pop somebody.
No, I wouldn't be that far, but like I would just be like, "What the hell is going on? Why are you in my house?"
Yeah.
And it just.
There is one thing here where this is the first time we get William Birkin's first name is right here. I'm telling you, I'm not letting this go. You're going to see more of it. I'm just going to tell you, it happens again.
Yeah.
But this is the first time where you get Birkin's first name being William.
Yeah.
And through the conversation that Claire and Chris have, it's clear that this is a bit of a strained relationship.
Well, he says that they haven't spoken in 5 years.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder why she would know, like, oh, he's a cop, oh, Jill. Like, they can't be that old in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think. I'd say they're probably like early to mid 20s. But they suggest that Claire like ran away fairly young.
Well, we see her run away.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I believe it is. I believe that was not the last time they were in touch.
No, probably not. But they've at least not spoken for the last 5 years. And the way that Chris talks about like how after she ran away, William and them became family and stuff like that, and Umbrella helped raise him up and made him a cop and all that. So it just suggests that there's more time that has passed, even for that. I don't know. It just, the timeline feels weird to me.
Yeah.
That she would know what's going on in his life, who his like love interest is, and all that.
That's a good point.
Like,
I was thinking when you said thing about the cop, I'm like, well, she's been doing research on this place. I would imagine she would know that. But yeah, the still pine after jail thing. Yeah, because they in that case they definitely would have had to have been in contact since she ran away.
And maybe it's just that I'm not picking up on like the timeline and everything else precisely what it's meant to
we
be.
know when this takes place, but I don't think they give a time for the orphanage section. But yeah, they're kind of going back and forth. They're kind of going back and forth. He does say he owes Birkin and Umbrella everything, so it's clear he's a bit of a company man. We also get a name drop of another character here. This one, we actually get the full name. It's crazy. Is Ben Bertolucci. Anyone who is a fan of Resident Evil 2 is going to know that name and know that things tend to not go very well for him.
Yeah. I do want to backtrack real quick. And so Chris is played by Robbie Amell.
Yes. So I will say, for a lot of these characters, I wrote down a few things that I knew them from. Easily the biggest one for him, for me, is the movie Duff. I love that movie. I don't know. It's just a very enjoyable movie.
It's very good.
He's in a few episodes of The Witcher. He is in the Babysitter movies. And he is the cousin of Stephen Amell. So I think that's kind of interesting because Stephen Amell famously plays Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, in the TV show Arrow. And like I mentioned earlier, Neil McDonough, who in this is Birkin, plays Damien Dark in a fair number of seasons of Arrow. So it's just kind of nice when you're able to kind of trace people back like that.
And I know we kind of talked about it. I feel like Robbie Amell is probably I think this is a good casting choice.
I will say Chris. From end to end, I think his characterization is my favorite.
Yeah.
I think his is the most spot on. There are a lot of things with him where I'm like, I really enjoy this. We talked earlier a bit about some of my favorite things for him. I do think his is the most consistent and the one I like the most in this movie. Yeah. And honestly, I like him as an actor.
Yeah. I think when I think of Chris Redfield, Robbie Amell's look really fits what Chris Redfield was, especially in those early couple of games.
Yeah.
He's portrayed as just this kind of standard American Boy Scout type of character, and Robbie Amell plays him very well.
Robbie Amell could punch a boulder. Yeah. I could see that.
I think he said in a sequel he hopes he gets to do the boulder punching scene.
Yes!
In a potential sequel. So it would be interesting.
I'm glad you said that. I want to take a second, and I just want to point. I really want a sequel to this movie so badly. I cannot stand how badly I want to see them really try again, I guess.
Well, they've pretty much greenlit a second movie, from what I understand. It's not officially out there, but they've purchased land, the rights to film on certain land and stuff like that. So, and Johannes Roberts had said in interviews during the press tour, I think, that if they did a sequel, they'd want to adapt Code Veronica and possibly 4 and 7 going forward, which Code Veronica makes sense given something we'll see later on in the movie. We get name dropped Ben Bertolucci. Claire says that this is a guy she's been in a chat room with, and Chris is like, "What's a chat room?" Because it's 1998, so chat rooms are just not a known thing. Chatting on the internet is not a thing.
Yeah, and she has a tape of him talking, and it is a literal tape. It is a VHS tape.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And he's got like the vision board for every conspiracy theorist with the complete with the red strings tying everything together. Like Ben has gone from like journalist to just full blown conspiracy nut, and
Yeah.
it just turns out he's right about this one.
100%. Like later on, there's a section where I'm like, he's spouting nonsense. He's spouting theories. We know most of them to be true. There is a really nice moment I like here, a very sibling moment, where at one point in time, Claire shushes Chris, and Chris goes, "You shush." And I'm like, that's the sibling moment between the two of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she has a tape of him, and he's saying this stuff about there's sickness in the water. That's how it's spreading. It's affecting the poor people like crazy. All of this stuff that is certainly going to come back around. She does also very importantly say that she hasn't been able to get in contact with him for a little while.
Yeah. And that brings to mind the question, like, okay, so they've been... So first of all, have they been polluting the water purposely, or is it just like the runoff from their facilities? That's a little unclear from what Ben says. He just says that they're polluting the water or something like that.
Yeah, one thing I will say in this movie that I wasn't able to quite put my finger on it until you said that. Really, the only umbrella people that we interact with in this movie are the guards and Birkin.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah. So you don't really know what Umbrella's like purpose in all of this is. It's a little unclear. And like if they've been intentionally doing this or not, it seems like they may have. But then it also brings to question, what is the timeline for this disease, for this like infection? Because like earlier we saw that the dog went like almost immediately
Yeah.
feral, but the waitress has been dealing with this for like months, I think she said. And like the kid and his mother, how long have they been doing it? Like the time that it takes for the virus to actually take effect seems to be very inconsistent, because then we're going to find out here soon that the truck driver has almost immediately like infected.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, so she came to town because she thought there was some weird stuff going on, and that was before they hit a woman with a semi-truck who just walked it off.
Yeah, she came into town precisely because of what Ben was saying in the video about Umbrella poisoning the water and all that.
Yeah, so then we go over to the Birkin household. Birkin's daughter has woken up from a nightmare about a monster, and this is actually one of my favorite scenes of this movie. William Birkin is just being so cute with his daughter. It's such a nice like character moment, and this is really when it hit me that in the games we don't really ever get to see this. We don't really know of Birkin much as a person.
Yeah.
We only kind of see little clips here and there, you know, some flashback tapes and things like that. We really, of the family, especially in 2, we spend much more time with Annette Birkin, who is in this scene but is not named. At this point, Sherry is not named, but people who know Resident Evil will know these are the Birkins. You have William and Annette, husband and wife, and then their young daughter, Sherry.
Yeah. And in this story, Annette isn't even like a fellow scientist with Umbrella. She's just a wife and mother to...
Yeah, like we don't know
Birkin.
of any kind of job that she may or may not have.
Yeah.
It is very clear here in just a minute that she is not on the up and up about what's going on. Because then while he is with her, and it's you know fairly late at night at this point, the phone rings. And he goes and gets a phone call. And something that's interesting about this is he does not say like a word. It's not like a back and forth conversation. He picks it up, listens, gets a look on his face, hangs it up. And then he goes into the daughter's room and immediately is like, we have to leave. Like, we have to go. We absolutely have to leave now. He gets very aggressive very quickly. And she's like, why? What's going on? And then we hear the alarms going off. It is like not just a little one. It's almost like when they would have, like in my local hometown, when they put off the fire alarm, everyone in town hears it.
Yeah.
So it almost sounds like one of those old bomb threat alarms that would ring through the town.
Yeah, it's just a siren that's an SOS, and it's from Umbrella telling everybody to stay in their homes because there's a situation, but everybody will be okay. We need to maintain order, all that. The usual stuff you get.
So there is something very interesting about the alarm is that he gets a phone call and immediately is like, we have to go. The alarm that they are hearing is telling everyone to stay in their homes. So we've already had a number of people in this who talk about the poor and the way they're treated in this. But literally right now we have a situation where the poor people are being told to stay in their homes, stay behind, everything's fine, while the important people are being told to get the fuck out.
Yeah, it kind of plays into the theme that they've kind of been building on through this whole movie of Raccoon City being just sort of this rotten creature that's slowly rotting, that's just dying from the inside out.
Yeah. So and I will say, for the sake of our video, at this point, we are going to have to bounce around a lot of people's storylines as we go. This is definitely a movie where you're following anywhere from like 2 to 5 groups of people at the same time. So there is going to be a lot of just bouncing back and forth because at this point, we go right back to Chris and Claire. They are hearing the exact same alarms that we were just hearing at the Birkin household. So timeline-wise, you kind of know where we are. Chris does say that he has to leave, and he actually makes a little side mention of don't mess with the bike. So, of course, that's going to come back into play.
Well, of course, Chekhov's gun and all.
Yep. I like that she immediately starts questioning, why aren't you sick?
Yeah.
Like she's like checking the water from his faucet. She's looking at his water bottle. Like she knows it's in the water, and she's immediately like, why aren't you showing any signs of being sick?
Yeah.
I think that's a moment where Claire is shown to be very smart.
Yeah.
I like that.
At this point now, Claire sees the neighbor woman.
Yeah, so the way it's filmed is she is almost in like the middle to back section of the house. She hears a noise in the front and she turns to see the front door is opened. As she moves to the side, the way the camera angle is, you see the mom standing in the background and you're like, oh, that's not creepy at all.
Yeah, she's even dropped another Easter egg from the video games for the diehard Resident Evil fans. She's written the words "itchy tasty" in her own blood on the door there.
Apparently, that's from the files.
It is. But the reason that the front door is opened is that the child has come into the house to, I guess, hide from his mother. Claire goes down to talk to him, and as he hides under a table, asks him if he needs help. He gets the Sherry line from the game, like, you need help.
Yep.
And that's when the mother yeets herself through the back door and attacks Claire.
Dude, it is one of the best shots of the movie. Easily. Because you know it's coming. Yeah. You know. I mean, it's a glass door. You're like, if someone doesn't come through that, it's going to be a waste of a door.
Yeah.
But she's there, standing with the itchy tasty written on it. She's bleeding. She's especially got blood coming from her eyes. And then she gets a running start, man. I mean, you just boom, boom. You see her barreling towards this door.
Yep. She just crashes on through. She grabs Claire, knocks her to the ground, and then, not so much a scary moment as just one that kind of makes me laugh because it's just kind of over the top. She screams "itchy tasty" in Claire's face.
Yeah. The only thing I think is interesting about the itchy part especially is they kind of tussle for a minute and Claire kind of throws her off to the side. She immediately starts like scratching at her head and scratching at her face.
Yeah. Like
she does not get up and immediately take off after Claire.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting actually. So you've got someone who is still like turning into whatever they are in this zombie infected, whatever they are called. But someone who still hasn't 100% turned.
Yeah. So Claire takes that moment to escape the house. She finds the aforementioned motorcycle.
That is perfectly positioned to grab and go.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just absolute. It's literally got the helmet up on the handle. I mean, it's just gone. She's gone.
And she takes off, and we hit the RPD.
Oh my god, my favorite part of this movie.
It looks like line for line, word for word, picture for picture, the same, the exterior from the video game, from RE2 Remake.
The exterior looks great. We haven't gotten there yet. We're getting there in just a second. But the interior looks fucking perfect.
Yeah.
It blows my mind how good it looks. I think it every time I've watched this, as soon as we saw it in theaters, immediately I was like, holy shit. I would visit that movie set if I was able to. Because it is so good. But from the outside, we do see there's a person up in one of the upper offices looking out. At this point, we're not given a name of any kind. I will go ahead. It is Chief Irons. Even just at a glance, you have a pretty good idea of who it is. You don't get his name yet. But we see him looking out into this beautiful rainy evening. So then we cut into...
So from there, it cuts into the Star's office, and Jill and Richard and Wesker are all having a conversation.
Yep, and we immediately get yet more fan service, where Jill says, what way do you think, like, would you rather die, do you think would be worse? Would it be eaten by a snake or a great white shark? Which are, of course, references to Resident Evil 1 enemies.
Yeah, and Richard kind of gets eaten by both, depending on which character you're playing as. So it makes it doubly fun.
We do get yet another last name drop here with Vickers, where they ask about, why do we even have the helicopter? Weren't there budget cuts? Blah, blah, blah. And there's just a bit of back and forth. You can tell that these guys are all pretty close with each other. They're like joking back and forth.
Yeah.
And they're having this back and forth when Chief Irons enters. This is one of the funniest parts of this movie. When he comes in, and we'll take a second to mention that Chief Irons is played by, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name.
I think it's Donald Logue.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but he's, pretty notable from Ghost Rider, Gettysburg, Blade, The Patriot. I ended up looking it up. He plays a very scary-looking king in the show Vikings.
Yeah, like Neil McDonough.
Truly a character actor.
He's one of those character actors that just shows up in everything.
Yeah, and he is one of those characters that I do not typically tend to see him in like comedy movies, but his comedic timing is so good. Yeah. His delivery of funny stuff is just so good. And this is an absolute perfect example of that, where he comes in and he's pissed. You can tell Irons is mad. Those alarms are going off. And he comes in and they're like, what are the alarms for? And he's like, if you shut the hell up, I'll tell you. He takes a pause and he's like, I don't know. It is one of the funniest parts of this movie.
It is funny.
Dude, the delivery is so good. But yeah, it sucks because that's a great comedic thing, followed by my second least favorite scene in this movie. It goes on for so long. There is a moment where Wesker gets a notification on a pager because you had to show yet again that it was 1998.
Yeah.
And I will go ahead and let you know like I'm going to hide information from you. The beeper says to check your locker. So as soon as it goes off, Irons looks at Wesker and is like, oh, I'm sorry, do I not like have your full attention? He makes a joke about it being a new girlfriend. And then he starts to just like rip into Wesker about, oh, is that a new girl? You know what you should do? You should take her here. You should do this. You should listen to Journey. Everyone loves Journey. It is 35 seconds. I timed it out. It is 35 seconds of, you know how sometimes, I know Family Guy does it a lot, where they'll take something that's weird or maybe even uncomfortable and they'll do it long enough that it becomes funny. But if it doesn't land, it just makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This is it's bad. The only kind of funny thing is, so when I mentioned earlier about Tom Hopper being an interesting choice for this, I feel like he has always done a really good job of, frankly, being a pretty attractive guy. He's in shape, but he almost always has this kind of like goofy unsuredness to him, because even this, he like jokingly is like, you know what that means? He's like, I might get laid, and he's like almost excitedly saying it, and then Irons just shuts him down, basically with like, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
So that is one moment where I was like, if you were going to cast Wesker with that in mind, I think that's good. I think Hopper was a really good choice. I still think it's weird for Wesker to be that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. Oh god, I hate it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole scene is just another further orgy of evidence that this is the 90s. He's in that 35 seconds, there's the beeper, they drop Planet Hollywood, they drop Journey, the dulcet tones of Steve Perry, and they name drop Blockbuster of all things.
Yep.
So
the only kind of important thing for this is remember that he says like Journey, and he loves Journey. Just keep that in mind because there is a little funny thing with that later on.
And it's at this point as well that we get a little more exposition about the Spencer Mansion.
Yeah.
Because it gets mentioned, and Leon has wandered into the room and asks Irons, what's the Spencer Mansion? Get the whole backstory, and it's just used as a further punchline to knock Leon down.
It is kind of funny. He was like, "Oh, well, the Spencer Mansion is. Oh, well, the Spencer Mansion is this and this and this, and why the hell are you here?" That part is a little funny. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, he mentions about Bravo team has gone dark. My two guys, I'm not being able to get in contact with them because we saw them earlier. We know exactly who they are. We pretty much know who they were when they went missing. So he says, I don't know. He yells at Leon. Leon goes back to the front gate. What if someone wanders in? That part is kind of funny. I don't like when they wail on Leon, but that one, the mid-sentence jump to, why the hell are you here? That's pretty good. Yeah. But yeah, he then tells everyone to suit up and go check out what happened to Bravo team.
So Wesker goes to his locker, finds a Palm Pilot there, which says,
God, I love the technology in this.
1998.
Oh, I love it.
The Palm Pilot has a message on it that says everything you need to know is on this device.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess they knew he was going to go to the Spencer Mansion ahead of time. I don't know.
Yeah, that part's a little weird.
And it also contains a message. Raccoon City is going to be destroyed at 6 a.m.
Bum, bum, bum. Even though if you're listening to this, I said that an hour ago. But still, it's fine. So yeah, he gears up and they head out.
Yep. And now we see Claire riding through the streets on her motorbike.
So I will say, I mentioned earlier how the drawn out thing with Irons was my second least favorite part. This scene coming up is the dumbest fucking scene I have ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, so Claire's riding through the streets on her motorbike. We're also seeing Birkin and family driving through the streets trying to get out, and they end up kind of meeting up with one another. Yeah. Birkin nearly T-bones Claire on the motorcycle.
Yeah, T-bones, because Claire Redfield, somehow using the power of clairvoyance, was able to see this vehicle from God knows how far away and then dramatically pull up. By the time we see her, she's not still moving, which means she's been sitting there. What the fuck? So she's just dramatically sitting there waiting for someone. We've only seen 3 vehicles on the road at this point, and Claire's been in 2 of them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird moment.
It's dumb. It's so dumb.
It's manufactured so that she's there when Birkin comes by, so that she can like recognize Birkin and have a little exposition flashback.
Yeah, there is a kind of funny moment here. I hate all of that. That's the dumbest shit ever. I fucking hate it when movies do something just to do something. Like there's no, I understand realism is a little bit of a stretch in pretty much any movie ever, but for me, the idea that, yeah, it's like when you have the scare where the person opens the fridge door and then they hold it open for a minute and they close it and the monster's there. Was the monster just standing behind the fridge being like, ooh, this is going to be cool when they close it? It's shit like that. Like her stopped in the middle of the road. What if he just plowed through her? Oh, well, I guess Claire's not in this movie anymore. But there is a kind of funny thing where she flips up the visor of her helmet, so they're now locking eyes, and he has a moment where it's like he recognizes her, and then he just drives around her. he just kind of nonchalantly goes around her.
Well, I debated with myself whether or not he actually recognized her. I'm not sure that he did.
Yeah.
She definitely recognized him.
There's definitely a look on his face where I think it's supposed to be ambiguous about.
Yeah.
But he's so panicked at that point anyway that I kind of think character-wise it would just be like, fuck is this crazy lady in the road in front of me?
Yeah. But so this triggers Claire to have a little flashback, which shows the nurses and orderlies pulling her out of bed one night at the orphanage, and becomes pretty clear at this point that she was intended to be the next child that they experimented on.
Yeah. There also is a thing right before he stops where Annette is like, slow down, this is crazy, it's raining, why are you driving so fast? And he says they're going to destroy my life's work. That is a very on par character thing for Birkin.
Yeah.
So that that part's good.
Yeah.
The motorcycle thing's fucking stupid.
So after that whole moment, we cut back to the truck driver, who now is like almost full-on infected, once again bringing up questions about the timeline of how the virus infects people.
Yeah, he is not looking good.
His eyes are completely red, minus his irises, and...
Yeah, this is something that it's so interesting to me that the part of his eye that is red is the white of his eyes. I know sometimes when people like pop blood vessels and things, that'll happen, but it is such a unique look that this dude, who still has very blue eyes, might I say, I feel like I'm hitting on all the dudes in this movie. But anyway, he is huffing and puffing, and his eyes are just very striking. I think his has got the best effect of the eyes in this.
I see what you're saying there.
And his dog is still just...
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because it almost looks like the dog is like telepathically controlling or like mind control, because the dog is so intently staring at him.
Yeah.
Because there is also a moment here where I kind of have to question, like, why is he doing what he's doing? Because he is driving this big rig. It is barreling down the road towards RPD.
Yeah.
Why?
Because...
because movie.
Because that's what happened in the game.
Yeah.
But because also movie, we need a weird action sequence.
Yeah.
It's at this point we briefly cut back to show Leon asleep at the front desk wearing, I guess, a Walkman or something.
Dude,
or a CD player.
With apparently the greatest 1998 headphones the world has ever seen. I do also want to take a moment that this is where you get to see him at the front desk and you get a full view of oh my god, dude, I just cannot talk enough about the set design for the freaking RPD. It is beautiful.
So, yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. The way that they render it, it looks almost exactly like the game.
Yeah.
Cut back to the driver. He's barreling down the road, and we see him coming from the RPD entrance in the background.
We get a lot of like back and forths between them, and it's so funny because the truck driver is so intense and and then Leon's just asleep.
And then the driver keeps barreling on down, and this is where we get to my dumbest moment in this entire movie.
It's followed by two cool moments, but yes, you are correct.
So the truck driver swerves off, hits some cars. This causes the tanker to tip over, which is what happened in the original game, which is fine.
Yeah.
Then it explodes, and there's fire, and yet Leon is just completely unfazed.
Dude,
he doesn't even wake up.
These are the greatest headphones.
He doesn't react to either the giant flames. Like, have you done the backdraft ride at Universal Studios? You know what it feels like when fire's coming at you.
Or have you ever been to like the hibachi thing where they cook in front of you?
Yeah.
Like, you feel the heat.
Like, you feel the heat, and then, I've never been in an explosion, but I would assume that the waves from the explosion would, shake something or cause you some sort of blowback. But Leon's completely unfazed, and now...
Well, I was going to say, before that, there is a really cool sound editing moment here, where he is listening to a song called Crush by Jennifer Page, and you hear it very quietly coming through his headphones. They do a pretty cool thing, where it's like the song blows up, not like an explosion, but like is in volume,
Yeah.
where a small part of the scene, the sound expands and becomes the soundtrack. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a really good sound editing moment. I think that's cool. And I think what is about to happen, the way it is done looks cool. The CGI part of it is okay. I think the way that he's walking when he comes in, there's something very striking about that.
I just think it's dumb.
Fair. In concept, it is dumb. So the driver comes in through the door and he is, dude, freaking head to toe on fire. All of him is just burning.
And he's just quickly shuffling to the tune of the music.
Yeah.
Up to the desk towards Leon. Leon's still asleep, and then all of a sudden you hear a gunshot and takes out the driver, and that's what wakes Leon up, not the explosion right outside the door.
Nope, it's like the 357 going off right behind him.
And just once again, Leon's ineptitude in this movie.
Yeah, the CGI on the fire isn't, it's not the best. The fact that he comes through is whatever. But yeah, the fact that Leon is easily within eye line of the truck and the explosion, the fire, the front door of the RPD is open. The gates aren't like a big wall. They're like a fence almost. You can see through it. So the idea that he wouldn't react to that at all is But when the driver walks in, I think there's something appropriately creepy about the fact that he's on fire. No screaming, no nothing. He's just walking.
Yeah,
I think that makes it creepy.
I can give you that. That's
that
fair.
I think you have a moment of being like, holy shit. It just makes it off-putting, even beyond the fact he's on fire. I think that immediately makes it off-putting. But yeah, Irons shoots him. Leon appropriately, what the fuck? And then Irons says, like, you might want to close the gate. There might be more of them. And then Leon, I think appropriately, is like, more of what? Like, he just has no idea what's going on.
And it's at this point that I have to question, like, does Irons actually know what's going on or not now?
Dude, it's so hard to tell in this.
Yeah.
There are so many moments where you're like, he's in on it. Oh, no, he's not. Oh, yes, he is. Oh, no, he's not. Oh, yes, he is.
It's just very inconsistent, and it bothers me.
But that's fair. So there is then a quick little scene where Irons he's just packing up his office. He's like leaving. There is a kind of nice moment with Irons where as he's leaving his office, he says like, take care of yourself, Leon. I'm like, that's kind of nice. He's going to have a couple of not nice moments here in a minute.
Yeah.
But, Irons in the original game, dude, he's just like despicable. Everything he does is just awful. It's nice to have just a little bit of a different side in this.
Well, that's the thing in the terms of the characterization of Irons in this movie and the way Donalog plays him. Like, I don't get the sadistic serial killer vibe that the games gave off. It's just like pencil pusher.
Yeah, he's not really a secondary antagonist. He's really just a character in the movie.
Yeah.
I enjoy that, actually. But yeah, he goes to leave. There is a kind of funny scene where Leon just keeps asking questions about like, shouldn't we call someone? You're a cop. Who are you gonna call? Also, you'll notice all the phone lines are down. And he just keeps like, well, who's in charge now? Well, I guess that would be you, son. Congratulations on the promotion. I'm sure your father would be very proud of how quickly you're rising through the ranks.
Like, the writing isn't good, but Logue sells.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, his comedic delivery on a lot of this stuff is just chef's kiss. It's so good. And I love the fact that he never stops. He's packing stuff up. He's got his box. He puts his gun in. He never stops. Just walk and talk, man. Yeah. And he gets in his kind of pimpy looking car.
Yeah.
Like, it's like green and very reflective. And yeah, he tells Leon to take care of himself, and he's gone. He is out.
And so now we cut back to the Stars team, Alpha team, up in their helicopter searching the Arklay Mountains for the Jeep that Bravo team is in. And they find it on fire, turned over. Yeah. It's been kind of beaten up. There's slash marks all over it. Like, it's just not a good time.
Yeah. And then Chris tells them to set down to check it out. They can determine that this car belongs to their officers. And then there's a moment where a zombified bird, I'm not necessarily certain if it's the same one from earlier. I kind of like to think it is. It has a very similar look about it. But it lands on the wheel of the upside down vehicle. And right as Wesker is looking at it, all of a sudden, boom, oh my God, and Jill shoots it. And Wesker makes a line about, like, someone should take that gun away from you.
Yeah, because once again, in this movie, Jill is, for some reason, a trigger-happy, hot-headed...
I don't know about hot-headed. She kind of does most of it playfully.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I wouldn't argue that, but as I'm literally arguing it, for me, I don't get hot-headed. But yeah, she shoots it, and then they press on towards the mansion. And dude, yet again, I've just got to give this movie props for recreation of something from a video game.
Yeah, it looks almost 1-to-1.
Yeah, the RPD, because I love two considerably more than one. The RPD really gets me in the nostalgia and just the amazingness. I'm just going to talk about it every chance I get. This one, the only thing with the mention, when they first walk into like the main room, it's a little small. That's the only thing where I'm like, eh. But then again, the RPD, they have a lot of scenes in there. There's no real reason on building this huge, because they're through it in no time.
Yeah.
But yeah, even from the outside, it looks great. When they get in, it looks great. Dude, I really got to give it. The set designers and set builders for this, dude, they knocked it out of the park every chance they got. Very impressed. But yeah, once they get inside, like the main lobby area, Wesker suggests that they split up, and I love that Chris is immediately like, what the fuck? What do you mean split up?
Yeah, it's a nice moment where we're calling out the obvious trope.
Yeah, I love it.
And I like it. I even noted in my notes for this that, like, splitting up, the perfect tactic that never goes wrong.
Yeah, and, Wesker suggests, well, we can cover more ground, we can find them. I think he even says, like, we can find them and get the fuck out.
Which is a fair argument, I suppose, even though Wesker's obviously doing it for his own ends.
Well, obviously to us, they don't necessarily know that.
Well, yeah, but Jill volunteers herself to go with Wesker, much to Chris's chagrin.
Yeah, so at this point, I should have mentioned that Vickers has stayed behind in the helicopter. So when they come in, there are 4 of them in total. So we do get where Jill and Wesker head off together, and then Chris and Aiken head off together. Poor Aiken. Don't have a first name for him yet.
At this point, we don't even have his last name.
Oh, yeah, that's true. The one thing I will say for him, I think it's interesting, is he's using a shotgun. I don't know, I really like shotguns, particularly in video games. That's always one thing I clock. Whenever I watch the Doom movie with The Rock and Carl Urban, when Goat shows up, I'm like, I like him. Why? Shotgun.
Well, that was his signature weapon in RE1. That was the one, you'd get the upgraded shotgun from him after he died, one way or the other.
I like how you said you get it from him. You pick it up from his corpse.
Yeah, you basically inherit it. But, yeah, at this point, you still don't know his name, like we said earlier.
He's not going to do well.
No.
You know what, though? I will say that I think as a character here in a minute, he only makes one fatal mistake, and it just unfortunately happens to be his one and only.
Yeah.
Everybody gets one, does not apply to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, after this, we're going to go back to Irons, and this is where we get a call back to the Journey thing, where he's in his car, and he is blasting Journey. He's singing along to it. He's kind of having a good time, which I'm like, this is a bit weird.
Yeah. But it's immediately kind of ruined by the fact that he hits a roadblock set up by Umbrella.
Yeah, and it straight up looks like a military blockade. I mean, it is. No one's getting through it. He sees more or less the troopers up there stopping people. And this is where, when I mentioned earlier about, we have some nice moments, and I was like, we have some not nice moments. He is immediately like, come on, let's go, let's hurry up. You see people walking up towards the Umbrella people, and then they just start opening fire and just gunning people down.
Yeah.
And one person is like, hey, while people are being shot, someone hits his car, and Irons is like, get the fuck off my car. It's like, what the shit, dude?
Yeah, and Irons just drives off as quick as he can, which to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean his car gets shot a pretty good bit, and he pieces out. There is a moment right after this that I was hoping subtitles would give me something, where the troopers that have shot at the people, we see them now a little bit more up close, not through a grungy windshield,
Yeah.
and they look like Hunk. They look like Hunk. There's the one dude who talks, and I was hoping subtitles would be like Hunk. No, it just says man.
I think that's who it's supposed to be.
I feel like it's, if it's not, they absolutely know that people are going to assume it is. So if you guys don't know Hunk, he's just a badass man. He is a freaking unit, but he more or less, because to be honest, I don't know necessarily what Hunk looks like except for, the outfit. I don't know what the person himself looks like. He really just looks like a generic looking umbrella soldier who just happens to be made of absolute badass.
Yeah.
He's covered head to toe, very tactical gear. He's got the gas mask in the Resident Evil 2 remake that we talked about earlier. There is an extra mode where you can play as him. He's just freaking cool, man. And this, I feel like, is meant to be him. But unfortunately, this is all we get of him, is him saying, like, it's clear, and that's it.
So at this point, we get a quick shot of the front gate of the RPD, and there are actually a couple of citizens from Raccoon City who are trying to get in the gate. They're asking to be let in. They kind of look like they may be infected, but it's not like super bad yet. We don't really know for sure. And this is because Leon locked the gate earlier.
Yeah, so they are trying to kind of get through the gate, but it kills me that really they could unlock it if they just reached through and unlocked it, but they're not quite in their right mind enough to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's only like one or two of them now, but that is going to come into play later.
Yeah. And now Irons returns to the RPD.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you find out he's really not that great of a cop.
Dude, there are so many things here that annoy the hell out of me. First off, when he left, so there's like a big sliding gate in this like locked off parking area where they are. When he leaves, it closes behind him. When he comes back in, it doesn't close. I'm like, why wouldn't you close that? You know there are zombies out there. Why would you not close the door behind you?
Maybe the power got diverted to something else. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, Irons really kind of sucks. He starts hearing like sounds and everything else. He grabs his little 6-shooter.
Yeah.
And he loads it up with, the 6 rounds that he needs. And then he just starts firing them willy-nilly everywhere.
He shoots... Oh my god. Because this is the thing that gets Aiken later on too. And this drives me crazy. So, obviously we play video games. I am one of those people that, I'm not going to lie, if I fire like 2 bullets, I'm like, oh, gotta reload. Like, I am that person. I religiously reload every chance I get. And the fact that he fires off 6 rounds and then just keeps like aiming the gun, walking around like he's got a loaded weapon. I'm like, dude, you're boned.
Yeah.
There is a funny moment where he like grabs the gun and he doesn't have anything. And like while this important scene is going on, he's like, fucking bullets. Like that's just such a funny line, man. But yeah, there's supposed to be, I think this is supposed to be a bit more suspenseful, but I mean, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's the dogs.
Yeah, it's the dog. It's the freaking Rottweiler. I'm not 100% sure if it is intended to be the same dog from the truck, because, it blew up and the driver was on fire.
I don't think it is, because, like, the snouts and everything are different.
A lot of
like,
Rottweilers in this town.
It looks a little different. It's probably police dogs like it is in the game.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know. It could have gotten in through the gate that he never closed.
Yeah, that too.
Still bothers me.
But truly awful CGI. Like this thing does not even look.
It's not good.
Like it looks worse than the video game dogs.
Yeah, and it. The only saving grace of the 2 bad CGI things being the bird and the dog. At least they're not around very long.
Yeah.
At least there's that.
Yeah. So the dog corners Irons, who is without,
Yeah.
bullets to protect himself.
He goes to pull the trigger and it doesn't fire, and the music cuts like, oh, that's dramatic. And I'm like, literally everyone watching this movie is like, you don't have bullets. That was no surprise to us.
And then, by the grace of Claire Redfield, Claire comes in from off screen and just wallops this thing
she
with
beats the hell out of this dog
with a fire extinguisher.
It is brutal. It's one of those things where like it's dead and she gets like 5 more hits in. And then Leon comes out. He has a kind of funny moment where, yet again, they're taking a shot at Leon, where he's like aiming his gun at Claire, and he's like, "Put the gun down." She's clearly holding a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "I don't have a gun." And then she and Irons have a moment where, "Who were you, Claire Redfield?" "Oh, he knows who she is."
Yeah.
And then they go back in the RPD, and as Irons walks by Leon, he's like, "Put your gun down, Leon."
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. They just can't stop picking fun at him, man.
So now they enter the RPD, they go to the front door, and they see a much larger crowd gathered outside.
Oh, yeah.
And they look considerably worse for wear at this point. Again, bringing into question how quickly this virus goes.
Like they've been infected for months, but within maybe like a 6-ish hour period. Not even 6. That's probably overshooting by a lot.
I don't know. I don't want to keep harping on it, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. Also, this part always kills me because this is one thing, like, I like The Walking Dead, but there's a couple scenes where they have fences and whatnot, and the zombies are pushing on them, and eventually they push it over. And dude, be a survivalist for 5 seconds. If I was Leon, as soon as I saw them pushing on my gate, I don't care if I have to pick up a flagpole and go out and start poking heads. They're getting off my gate.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let them destroy the thing keeping them away from me. You poke heads and just be done with it.
Yeah.
But they don't. He then says that he's going to go check in with her brother because he thinks they can... he's like, something about like, they shut down all the roads, but I'm pretty sure we can get out of here on a helicopter.
Yeah. So, at this point, we cut back to the Spencer mansion, and I got to give Roberts his credit here because the way he shoots the action inside the Spencer mansion is really cool.
Yeah.
He shoots it sort of to try to replicate the way that the cameras would change in the fixed camera angles from the first game. He tried to recreate that visually, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think he does a pretty good job with it.
Yeah.
There are maybe a few too many scenes just showing that off for a bit of like,
yeah,
this group walking around, this group walking around, this group. After a hot second, I'm like, okay, let's do something.
Yeah. So we land with Richard and Chris.
Excuse me, we don't know Richard yet. We know.
Sorry.
Well, technically, I guess we don't even know Aiken yet. Okay, that's fair.
We land
Shotgun
with
guy.
We land with Chris and his compatriot, whose name is not yet known.
I like Shotgun guy.
And they encounter a zombie eating one of their fellow officers.
Dude.
And this is where they recreate the classic Resident Evil zombie turn.
Yeah, it's like the bald, very pale-skinned, slow turn from the left where you see the blood coming down. I think the scene itself is good. I think the fact that the cop is still alive is fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, that makes it genuinely horrific. While the zombie is turning, he's literally like, help me. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good stuff.
And so they try to shoot the zombie a few times. Not quite as effective as they'd like it to be.
No.
And he charges with a very velociraptor-like streak.
Yeah, some of the... I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Some of the noises for the zombies in this, it's weird choices. It's not, like, the worst. It's just weird.
Yeah. So they take care of that zombie, and they get... I don't remember, do they decide to split up, or do they get split up?
They decide to split up. What happens is, at that point, they finally do down the zombie, Aiken with a shotgun, and Chris with what looks to be like a submachine gun.
Yeah.
They down him, and then Chris immediately tries to tend to, their friend that's laying on the ground, and he looks at Aiken and says, Go see if you can find the other guy."
Yeah.
So then Aiken starts going upstairs,
Right.
and you kind of like cut back and forth between the two of them a few times, where Chris is lying and being like, "You'll be okay, you'll be fine." I mean, this dude was just being eaten a minute ago.
Yeah, and he dies.
Yeah, he does unfortunately die. With Aiken, where he goes upstairs, you get a couple of like almost false starts for where you think there's going to be a scare or a jump scare or something. He goes upstairs and he finds a pistol on the ground. He picks it up. It looks very much like the design for like one of the Samurai Edge pistols from Resident Evil. It is also locked back. So if you guys know like semi-automatic handguns, this is a used pistol. Someone was just going to town with it. And he's crouched down, and you see a zombie walk up behind him, but it's kind of like walking down the hallway and just happens to be like, "Oh, look, there's a guy there."
Yeah. And then this is where we get another sort of velociraptor thing, where you get the clever girl moment, where you're distracted by the one zombie that's coming from the hallway, and then all of a sudden one pops up in front of Aiken.
Yeah, he does. He does have a moment I like where he doesn't just get killed off screen. He's not shown here to be dumb. As soon as the zombie comes in the hallway, he cuts eyes behind him. He knows something is there.
Yeah.
And then when the one lunges at him, it would be very easy to be like, and then that's the last you see of him.
Yeah.
No, he comes barreling right out of the room immediately. And that's what just kills me is he fucks up right after this. But this is the first time we get his last name. He comes out and he yells Redfield down to Chris. Chris yells Aiken back up to him, and then they both just get fucking swarmed by zombies. This is another time where Aiken has already been shown firing his shotgun a couple of times. Shotguns historically do not tend to hold that much ammunition. He goes and pulls the trigger and nothing happens.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if he was walking around with an empty shotgun or if maybe it jammed or he didn't chamber another round or something. But it sucks that right as they charge him, he goes click and nothing happens. And he gets swarmed and they start chomping fast. So this is unfortunately the end of Shotgun Man.
Who we now find out is Richard.
Nope, not yet. Nope, we do not know Richard yet. We know Aiken.
We know Aiken.
We don't know Richard until Jill says it.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But Chris gets swarmed here, and there is this very interesting thing where he gets swarmed, and he kind of almost gets pushed back. And then there's a scene where he's like shooting with his main gun, and it's got a flashlight mounted on it. Yeah. It kind of comes on and off a few times, not like it's flickering, but like it's being switched on or off. I would be very interested to know if that was an actor choice, if that was an intentional director choice, if maybe it malfunctioned, if there's maybe a tactical reason behind it. I don't think it's a tactical reason because Chris is like panicking like a motherfucker at this point. But he's really going into survival mode quick, dude. He is gunning these guys down just left and right.
Yeah, so we cut back to the helicopter where Vickers is just kind of chilling. He's playing Snake.
There you go.
On I think it's a Nokia.
It looks like a Nokia phone.
Like one of those ones that are in the memes that are like, you can drop this and it will break the floor.
Hey man, we had those.
I know, but still, like 1998, man. What do you want?
Oh,
but,
God.
He's playing Snake, and then...
what a beautiful timestamp for this.
And then he doesn't get outright attacked.
There's a thing where this is yet again a thing that bothers me a little bit because it's a horror movie thing where you see the bloody hand come on maybe the passenger side and it squeaks down the thing and it leaves the bloody trail. Because it's just like, why would the zombie do that? But then it busts through the drive. It feels weird to say driver's side window for a helicopter, but it comes through that side and immediately grabs him and then it cuts away. So immediately you're not quite sure what happens to him. You get a pretty fucking definitive answer here in a minute.
It's going to be very quick because then we cut back to Wesker and Jill. They're making their way downtown, walking fast. And they enter into a room with a piano.
I love that you used that song reference with a very notable piano part as he gets to the piano.
Totally intentional, I assure you. So Wesker looks at his Palm Pilot and sees that there's keys.
Dude, I love it.
Spelled out. I still, if we were getting actual characterization, Jill should be the one playing the piano because she's the classically trained pianist.
Yeah, it is kind of funny where he
But-
sits on the piano and she's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. But on his Palm Pilot, it has the notes that he needs to play on the thing, and it is the Moonlight Sonata,
Yeah.
which is what it is in the game. So that's a fun little Easter egg.
Yeah, and as he's playing it, you know, he didn't really answer Jill about what are you doing, which I feel like that merits a follow-up question.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm playing piano. Okay, we're here looking for our friends who might be dead. But she starts walking towards the outer part of the room. There's this very big window looking out, and she kind of has that look of like, what is that? And as he's playing the piano, he gets to the, I guess, the end of the little intro section, and a big electric door, I say big, an electric door opens off to the side right as you see a light getting closer, and she's like, look out. She turns around, she runs, she knocks him out of the way. Vickers has made his entrance to the party.
Yeah, Vickers at this point has been bitten. He's somewhat infected, and he's just flying this helicopter haphazardly right into the building.
See, I didn't necessarily know that he got bitten. I thought his defense mechanism was let me get off the ground and just happen to fly into the building.
That's possible. I might
Yeah.
be reading too much into things.
It definitely does the action movie thing where the helicopter crashes, it stops for a second, and then it just completely firebomb blows
Yeah.
up.
And there's absolutely no way Jill and Wesker could have survived that
Dude,
because
they're
they're
right
in the
there.
room. They're in the room with the explosion.
Like, they're right
So,
there.
you know, rest in peace, Jill and Wesker.
And Vickers.
So then we cut back to the RPD. Claire and Leon are arming up.
Yep.
This is another moment where we make fun of Leon.
Yeah. There are a lot of funny moments in this little scene that I kind of like. I actually like when Leon opens the big wooden crate and there's one shotgun in there. That is 100% like a Resident Evil thing where you would open up a giant and there's one thing in there.
Yeah.
And he pulls it out and it's a stockless shotgun and he's just like flipping it around like a child would. And
Like he's never seen a
yeah,
shotgun
like come
before.
on, dude. And then Claire takes it from him and then has like a bulletproof vest and hands it to him like, you need this.
Before you hurt yourself, you know?
And then she starts loading. He's like, how do you know so much about guns? Like, come on, dude. How do you not know, like, even which end the ammunition comes out of?
Yeah, but that's only facilitating. We get a little more backstory for
Yeah.
Claire saying, oh, when I ran away young, I needed to learn how to survive on my own. So that got you, like, weapons grade training.
Yeah, it's
Like,
and it's a shotgun. Come on, that's
yeah.
a fairly basic to use firearm.
I guess, but I don't know. It feels like this, once again, the misunderstanding of the strong female protagonist, where we need to make the female a badass because she needs to be a badass versus, oh, well, we need to have her have a reason. Like in the original game, it said that Chris had trained Claire to do basic firearms and stuff
Yeah.
like that because he was a cop. He knew how to do that. He was in the military beforehand, so he learned how to do that too.
Yeah.
So it's established that that's why she has the basic knowledge of using some firearms. I don't know. Maybe it just bothers me too much. I don't know.
I think her thing bothers me less than Leon's.
That's fair.
Like the way that he's waving it around. I'm like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
But it is during this that they hear like some yelling from like downstairs.
Yeah.
And it is a kind of funny thing where Leon looks at the door and looks at Claire and Claire's like, dude, this is like your place, not mine. Not mine.
That is funny.
Yeah, I get a kick out of that.
And so they go to investigate.
Well,
Leon
Leon.
goes to investigate. And here we find Ben Bertolucci.
ooh, what a shocker.
So, you know, remember, he hasn't been in contact with Claire for a while. He's been locked up.
Not alone.
Not alone. There's
with a dude who is just like straight up zombifying off on the side.
Yeah. So he and Leon have a little back and forth.
This part annoys the hell
Leon
out of me.
once again acting like a doofus.
Not just him. Ben is a piece of shit here.
Well, yeah.
Ben very easily could have been, hey, you have seen what's going on. This dude is becoming infected. He's going to bite me. Please
Yeah.
get me out.
Yeah.
No. He threatens Leon. He's a total prick muffin to him the entire scene because it's Leon and that's what we do in this movie.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
I mean, to to an extent, it makes sense because Ben's very clearly, I don't trust any of you cops or anything like that person. But, yeah, just be like, because even when he tricks Leon to come up to the door and steals Leon's gun, he doesn't even think to turn around and go ahead and shoot the zombified person.
That is
true. He just keeps shouting at Leon to get the key to get out. Like, dude, you have the gun. At least take care of the zombie that's you obviously know is there and is fueling your urgency.
Dude, it's just like the gate, man. These people have no survivalist instincts.
But
I say that like I would survive in an apocalypse, but come on, man.
But
I will say there is something where he is just like spitting out all of these what you would think would be conspiracy theories, but a lot of them kind of make sense.
Yeah.
Where he mentions the thing about, have you wondered why you aren't sick? You probably got a little vitamin injection or a pill or something you probably weren't even aware of. So immediately you're like, oh shit, maybe that is why none of the cops are getting sick in this town.
Yeah. So, yeah. As no sooner does Leon actually manage to unlock the door, then does Ben get bitten by the zombie.
The way I wrote this is, well, as Leon is opening the door, oh my god, what a shocker, the zombie dude absolutely destroys Ben. He is very dead.
So the zombie kills Ben, and then, turns to Leon instead of taking the meal that's right there for him.
I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
And so the zombie goes after Leon. Leon obviously does not have his firearm at this point, so fights him off. Or tries to fight him off.
Holds him off.
And at this point, Claire comes in to save the day. Here I come to save the day.
Before we move past this is a point that I've pointed out for a lot of zombie-related things. This one is weird because the zombies themselves are so weird. But there are, even in some of the Paul W.S. Anderson movies, they have a moment where they are in a laboratory and they're talking about, why do they bite people? Why do they go after people? And a lot of zombie-related things is the idea that it destroys whatever it is, the virus. I guess it pretty much is always a virus. It destroys most of the brain, but the only thing that is really there still are the most like basic of base instincts, the ability of movement and the need to obtain food. If that's the case, when the zombie earlier was munching on the dude and then came after Chris, that immediately contradicts that. You have food. Why would you be going after that? If you had Ben, you bit Ben. Why would he not immediately start chomping down on that? This one, like I said, I give a little bit more leeway because they don't explain it. In the Anderson one, it pisses me off because they talk about it and there's a zombie in a thing with two scientists and he bites one and then immediately just launches after the other. Yeah. That contradicts exactly what you just said.
Yeah, I get it.
It's such a weird thing to get hung up on, but it bothers me.
Well, I think the way you can kind of justify it in this movie might be because in the games you're kind of told that they're not really dead. Yeah. It's just the virus is decomposing and taking them back to a baser instinct and decomposing the body as they go, so they're still not technically dead, but they're basically not alive.
Yeah.
Either. So, I don't know. There's something there. You're right. It does not make a whole lot of sense if a zombie's just going to kill to eat a meal.
Yeah.
To immediately turn on Leon. But
yeah, I mean it's not a big thing. And in this one, like I said, they don't take the time to explain it, so I'm not going to get mad at them for contradicting it. But yeah, Claire comes in, just blows the zombie away with her shotgun. And then she does have a genuinely kind of sad moment where she recognizes Ben. I will say, I think there's a kind of funny thing where Ben was bitten kind of in pretty much his neck, upper neck area. Yeah. And he falls in a way where he's like sitting up, leaned against the back wall. And it's such another movie thing where he falls in just a way where you can walk in, glance, and if you knew him, you would immediately be able to recognize him. Yeah. That's kind of funny. Claire doesn't walk in and be like, oh man, who was that yelling down here? Turns body over. Oh, it's that guy. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a movie convenience thing where she comes in. She has a bit of a sad moment of like, oh no, I knew him. She also then notices Leon's gun on the floor of the cell he was just in. Yeah. She gives it to Leon and says like, get your shit together. You're not going to survive. there is a kind of funny moment with Leon here where I kind of enjoy this one, where he is going to leave and the zombie behind him stands up and you can see him get like physically annoyed at the fact this zombie's still alive. He's just like, oh fuck, and then turns around and unloads his pistol, officially double tapping the zombie.
Yeah, and then Claire comes in and makes it a joke again by being like, are you done?
Yeah, so maybe there's hope for our little boy Leon. I do get a kick out of the fact that he's the one who double taps the zombie, and he was in Zombieland Double Tap. Did you get a kick out of that?
That's funny. And then it's at this point that we cut back to the, exploded room. And
that is somehow not full of dead people.
Yeah. Wesker and Jill are alive. In spite of being like 5 feet from an exploding helicopter. So, I won't question it. This is where Wesker tells Jill, like, hey, I gotta go do this. I'm doing this thing.
Yeah, this is where we start to fill in. Wesker says he was contacted a few months ago by people. He says, at least in this, that they are not Umbrella. They're trying to expose the Umbrella Corporation for what they are doing. Yeah. So he doesn't definitively say, I was sent here to get the G-Virus. He's really just following the Palm Pilot.
Yeah.
He does also say she. He does mention she. As soon as he said she, I had a pretty good idea who he was talking about. Yeah. I feel like most of us would have.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does explain that he's just trying to get out of this town, out of this life. She does have a moment where she's like, really, you were just going to leave all of us? Which, with her having a thing for him, I get. But he doesn't even answer. He's just kind of like internally like, yeah, fuck you guys. This town sucks.
And he runs off and Jill...
Well, there is a moment where you think he's going to shoot her.
Yeah.
Where he goes almost to go for his pistol, and she looks at it, and then he says, like, I can't. And he freaking, like, manhandle pushes her to the side and shoots this zombie that's dressed in an RPD uniform. Yeah. I will say this is the moment where I have not noticed the difference in size between these two, with freaking Tom Hopper's arm on her. His arm's the size of most of her body.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is officially where we get Aiken's first name. She says, we like, fuck you. We have to go. I will say, as I say that, this movie has so many F-bombs. Yeah. Like, I enjoy it. She says we have to go save Chris and we have to go save Richard. Well, spoiler alert, Richard got his first name after he's no longer a part of this movie.
Yeah.
And he says he's got to go, so he does. He just takes off pretty healthily jogging down the hallway, and then she goes leave to go try to find Richard and Chris.
Yeah.
We then pretty much immediately come back to the RPD, where we see it's no longer just a person or two on that gate. It is an absolute mob of people, and they are just pushing on that gate for everything they're worth.
Yeah, they are about to break that thing down. So Claire and Leon and Irons need to act quickly to get out of there. Yeah. And Irons is like, I think I know another way.
Yeah, it is a little weird. It took him this long to think. He knows 3 ways to leave the city, and it took him this long to think of a third of them. Okay, whatever. But yeah, it is a little thing where it's convenient right as they go to break through the gate that he's like, I know a way, follow me. Yeah. And then we start getting into some kind of action movie stuff where they're trying to leave the RPD through a loading dock. They're getting hit by zombies in the hallway. They're fighting them off. They're kind of covering each other. So they do get to the loading dock. They get through, close the gate. So we're officially done with the RPD, which, God, makes me so sad.
Yeah, but you know what we're gonna get? Empty shots of the city.
Yep.
No, we're actually gonna be heading off to Claire's favorite place.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like this is a moment where there could have been a really good scene, but it's played in the background where Claire is just like absolutely rapid firing questions at Irons. Why are we here? What's going on? What do you know about this? Are you on the payroll? But instead, we're focusing on Leon. This is one of my favorite shots in this movie. Yeah. So they are in the orphanage. They've turned on a few lights, and there are these big hanging lights from the ceiling, and they're down this long hallway in front of Leon. And he's looking at them, and you see them kind of one at a time swaying kind of towards him. So you can tell there's something coming towards him that you can't see. Yeah. It is a very good shot. I really think this movie, if they had changed a few things and cranked up like the scary factor, oh dude, they could have made a fucking terrifying movie.
Yeah, there was potential that was unmet here. So Claire and Irons are bickering in the background, and it's only through the subtitles that you kind of finally get the answer that Irons is maybe not in on it, but he's on Umbrella's payroll.
Yeah.
And so you finally get that answer, but again, it's off screen. You can barely hear it, and it's unintelligible. It's at this same time that Lisa goes to shush Leon, like tell him, hey, don't make any noise. And Leon doesn't really listen. He's just like, hey, guys. And then...
Well, so she also kind of like pointed up to the ceiling. Like there's very clearly something up there. He does call out to Claire, and he being Leon, does call out to Claire and Irons. And then we have kind of one of the most annoying parts in this movie for me, where, I mean, any Resident Evil fan knows what's up there. Claire comes up with Leon and sees nothing. Like, oh my god, Lisa's gone.
Lisa's gone again.
And then behind them, you see Iron standing there, and you see a very long tongue wrap around him and pick him up. It's a licker. We all knew it.
Yeah.
But the thing that annoys the hell out of me is Claire and Leon just don't seem to care.
Yeah.
Like, they slowly turn around, they see his feet dangling, they don't make any effort to help him. They do not make any attempt to save him, to anything. They just watch him die.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fucked up. That genuinely bothers me in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, everything about these two characters, especially the ones from the video games, they would not have just stood there and watched someone die like that. No. Irons isn't the best guy, but in this movie, again, he's not like a direct antagonist. And they just watch him die, and then the liquor drops his body, and dude, he is fucked up.
Yeah,
it looks almost like part of his face was ripped off. And then Leon yells, "Run!" which is probably the smartest thing he said in this movie so far.
Yeah. I do want to make quick note that the liquor is like the only good CGI.
Yeah, dude, the CGI on the liquor looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very clearly where a lot of their CGI budget went. So yeah, they take off down the hallway, and the liquor is chasing after them. The liquor manages to knock Leon's feet out from under him, and he turns to look at it. And then Claire does the dumbest fucking thing she does in this movie. She has a shotgun. You know, a shotgun. She throws it away. She absolutely freaking, like, flings this thing away from her, pulls out her handgun and starts shooting at the liquor. Spoiler alert, it's not super effective. You had a shotgun. What the fuck? Or even, you shoot the pistol one-handed. Keep the shotgun in your hand.
Maybe she knew that it was empty and decided to throw it.
Then why would she run around with an empty shotgun?
I don't know.
They shoot it later. She had ammo for it. I call bullshit.
Okay.
But yeah, at this point, Claire's old friend, Lisa Trevor, re-enters the fray.
Yeah, she just jumps on top of this liquor like it's like they're fighting at WrestleMania, and
it's a very apt description.
She like strangleholds it and pulls it up against a wall and manages to finally just kind of break the bottom half of its jaw off and kill it.
Yeah, she almost rips his head in half. I just realized we maybe should have mentioned it earlier. I know we talked about it a bit in the Resident Evil 1 episode. Her hands are kind of shackled together.
Yeah.
It looks almost like an old, if you've ever seen the thing where people were in like the stocks where it closed down on them. It almost looks like that, where her hands are shackled together. So that's what she uses to almost half rip this dude's freaking head. I mean, it is dead. And then she and Claire have what I think is a series of very nice moments here where she calls Claire by her name.
Yeah.
And then Claire calls her by her name and says who she is.
Yeah.
She tells Lisa, you know, we're looking for a way out. Lisa takes her back into the little playroom that we saw earlier. And she gives her what is, all right, look, I know a lot of actors and directors are known for stealing things from set. If I had been in this movie, there is a 0% chance I would have left behind the prop keys that she drops in Claire's hands. I probably would have stolen it before we even shot the scene. It is my favorite prop in this because she says the word key and she gives her a set of keys. There are 4 keys on a key ring, and they are, I mean, even down to the color, a perfect replication of the original colored keys from Resident Evil 2. So the ones that there's like the spade key, the heart, the diamond, and the club. And oh, they look so good. And she even shows her like a little keyhole that's kind of built in, hidden in the wall. Claire goes and puts the key in, turns it, door opens to a hidden elevator. So they both get in
and they leave Lisa to die.
Yeah, that part, you know, in my head canon, I like to imagine she gets out. She definitely doesn't.
I mean, maybe Lisa doesn't want to get out. I mean, honestly, she probably lives a pretty tortured existence.
Yeah.
So,
but there is a kind of funny moment where when they're in the elevator, Leon looks at Claire and is like, "You got some weird fucking friends."
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. Maybe not pleasantly. I was surprised that Leon at no point in time questions Lisa Trevor into. I guess maybe he's afraid she's gonna rip his head off.
Oh yeah, but also, I mean, all the other crap he's seen so far tonight, like I wouldn't question it at this point.
Yeah, the only other thing in this is while they are walking to the playroom, or once they hit it, we do officially get the flashback where we see Claire run away.
Yeah.
It's just a few seconds. It could have been shown earlier. It didn't need to wait this long, but we do see her the night that Birkin was going to take her in this room, probably downstairs to the room we'll see in a little bit.
Yeah.
She did run away.
And so now as the elevator descends, we cut back to the Spencer mansion, and it's Chris. And he's just...
Dude, this is one of my favorite parts of this movie.
He's just firing. It's at this point that I start to question, like, do they actually have this much ammo on them? I don't know.
Well, the only thing I will say about this is, yeah, they're... Especially when he's shooting his machine gun. I think a lot of people do not realize if you have an automatic weapon and you're holding that trigger, dude, it goes fast.
Yeah.
When you see movies and people have automatic weapons and they're just spraying and praying for like a minute, that's not, unless it's like a belt fed or drum magazine. No. But the thing here that he does that I really like is, and we talked earlier about the characterization for him, I fucking love that Chris is fighting tooth and fucking nail, dude. He gets swarmed multiple times. He is shooting his submachine gun as much as he can. He's got his knife out. He's got his pistol out. He's reloading. I mean, dude, he is just going to town.
Yeah.
And I really like it. There are a lot of really cool lighting shots in all this scene as well.
Yeah, so there's a point where it's just coming into complete darkness as Chris is kind of fighting through the mansion, and the scene actually only gets lit by, first you get some muzzle flashes from when Chris is like shooting up some of the zombies,
Yeah.
and you see just these flashes of zombies coming in and out of frame or getting quick shots. And it's kind of, the muzzle flashes are kind of motivating the cuts in the film. And then
very good stuff.
And then it goes on further where Chris brings out a lighter, and the lighter is the only thing lighting the scene.
The only thing that bothers me, the lighting of the scene with the lighter is cool, but the stupidity of the character bothers me. Chris sees a zombie moving towards him, and he just keeps relighting the lighter. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I do also like that it has the Umbrella logo on the lighter.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of funny. I mean, obviously it would, but that's funny.
So Chris gets slightly overwhelmed by some of these zombies.
Yeah, he's out in a hallway where he gets swarmed for the 50th time in this movie.
And, it looks like this might be about the end for old Chris until Jill comes in and saves the day.
I mean, he could have punched a boulder. It'll be fine.
He can do that next time, I guess.
Yeah, so they have a reunion. They kind of have a second where they check their surroundings to make sure that they're clear, and then they hug, which is kind of a nice little moment of like, oh my God, you're alive. Oh my God, you too.
Yeah, and it's here that they kind of fill each other in on what's been going on. Richard's dead. Wesker betrayed us.
They do not say Richard's dead. It bothers me. It bothers me that they don't even mention it here. Shotgun Dude deserved better, man. He just deserved better. Like, he and Claire could have been shotgun boy and girl together. I don't know. But yeah, because the first thing that they say is like, it's all gone to shit. And Chris says, well, we can like call Vickers and get the helicopter and get out. And Jill says, the helicopter is gone. Vickers is dead and Wesker betrayed us.
Yeah.
But she does immediately say, I think we need to follow him because I think that's the only way out.
Yeah.
And he goes along, yeah, they don't talk about Aiken. That bothers me.
Yeah.
Hey, where's the other half of the people you left with?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's pretty safe to assume if he's not here with Chris, he's probably gone.
I mean, that is fair. So now we do have an interesting situation, like plot-wise, where everyone is moving towards the same location, even though they might not necessarily know it. So yeah, Wesker is going down the hallway. Jill and Chris are eventually going to be coming up the hallway. We don't quite know it yet, but Claire and Leon are moving towards the same location. There's also a movie character we left earlier who's already down there. So yeah, everyone is now going to pretty much the exact same location. And we jump right back to Claire and Leon as they are getting down to the bottom of where their elevator went.
Yeah, and this elevator leads to Birkin's lab under the Spencer mansion.
Yeah, it gets dark.
This is where you get one sort of major Easter egg for all of the Resident Evil faithful. You get a pretty much one-to-one recreation of the film of the Ashford twins. That was a pretty major piece of the plot in Code Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. It's so one-to-one to the point that I can't really tell, like, if it was absolutely like 100% like live action actors or if it was somewhat CGI created. Like, it's that kind of like quality of the projection, but it's exactly the same thing that's in it. It's the creepy twins who are just kind of peeling the wings off of a dragonfly, drops it into the ants. Yep, you've played Code Veronica, you've seen it one for one.
Yeah, and even if you hadn't, it's in a scary movie. I mean, scary, weird kids in horror movie is pretty par for the course.
Birkin is just kind of there in the background studying them. I don't know. It's weird.
So yeah, as the projection is playing, Leon goes to the desk where the projector is, and he moves a film reel that does just flat out say Ashford twins. For anyone that does or doesn't know, these are the kids of Edward Ashford. So there are three people that are very important in the Umbrella timeline. It's Edward Ashford, Oswell E. Spencer of the Spencer Mansion that they just left, / some of them are still kind of in, and James Marcus. These were the three founders. So yeah, these are the Ashford twins from Code Veronica, but apart from the clip, they don't particularly play a big part in this. And then yeah, Leon then does find a book that does not have good stuff in it.
No, it's basically just a record of the experiments that Birkin was conducting and the outcomes of them. It includes Lisa Trevor and several of the other various kids, but Lisa's the main one that you know.
Yeah, Lisa Trevor has like her own definitive page on there, and then Claire starts flipping through a bunch of these pages, and it's just a list of names and the word deceased next to all of them, and she is like ripping out page after page. She has a little bit of a moment where she's ripping out the book and she destroys the book, and Leon's like, it's fine, and she's like, fuck you, it's not fine. And I will say the actress does a really good thing here where she doesn't just flat out start crying. She has the tears and she's kind of like holding back the tears. That's always, I think, a very impressive acting thing to do. I will say, speaking from experience, that is very hard to do. Sometimes it's easy to cry or don't cry.
So at this point now, after they sort of move on from that moment, we cut down to Wesker running down a hallway, and he comes into another lab area where, guess who's here?
The Birkins.
The Birkins.
Dude, this is one of the weirdest scenes in this. This is just nothing but awful decisions, one after another.
Yeah, so what happens is, Birkin is trying to gather up his samples of the G virus, his life's work, so that he can get out of Dodge.
They are very clearly labeled G. I mean, there's this giant fucking G on all the vials, too.
And Wesker comes in and confronts him, saying he needs the virus and all the other research and all that. He's here to get Umbrella's role, information about Umbrella's role in all of this, and fulfill the mission. Birkin says, "No, I'm not giving you my life's work."
Birkin actually asks Wesker, like, who hired you? And as he says that, you see that he has a handgun in front of him. And the way the scene is set up, his back is to Wesker, so Wesker can't exactly see that. Wesker responds, "It doesn't matter." And Birkin says, "Nope, I suppose it doesn't." He then stupidly, like, he has to know this is some type of trained person with a gun on him. He grabs his gun, turns around, and he immediately shoots Wesker. He hits him. Wesker responds by putting 3 in his chest.
Yeah. And then everything just kind of goes to hell from here.
Dude, it goes to shit so fast. Like,
Annette and Sherry, like, completely freak out. Birkin's laying on the floor, bleeding out.
And he just keeps saying vials,
Yeah.
vials. So you kind of see, and then he hands Annette the gun.
Yeah.
And she kind of slowly and stupidly, like, stands up. Wesker's like, "Don't do it, lady." She turns around, aims the gun at him. He puts one right in her forehead, dude. Like, what the fuck did she think was gonna happen? That's so stupid.
Yeah. And so just further traumatizing Sherry at this point.
Yeah.
And Wesker is now shot Annette.
She kind of had it coming.
She's gone. And Sherry has disappeared in the midst of Wesker having a little crisis of, like, what the hell just happened? What did I do?
Yeah, he does have a moment of, like, oh my god. But then he does have a moment that I actually kind of like, where he just flat out fucking gets mad at Birkin. He's like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why couldn't you just give me the vials?" As he sees this, or as he says this, you do see Birkin's hand come unclenched, and you see that he has an empty syringe in his hand, and he's kind of smiling a little bit.
Yeah, so he's very clearly injected himself with some of the virus.
Yeah, but as the camera kind of pans towards where Sherry is, and Wesker's like, "You fuck," he just flat out shoots Birkin two more times.
Yeah, he unloads a couple more into Birkin just to, like, try to double tap him. Not really working out, though.
Yeah, I mean, it works for the moment.
And so, yeah, Sherry's hiding around the corner, and after Wesker shoots Birkin a couple more times, he sort of turns to leave and hears a crunch of glass, and he turns around again to see Sherry holding the gun.
He's just gonna gun down this entire family holding this same one gun.
Well, he hesitates here.
Yeah, he does have a moment where he turns and, like, raises his gun for a minute, and then you hear a gunshot. But the way it's filmed, it's not one of those, like, who got shot? You can very clearly instantly see it was Wesker.
Oh, yeah, no. Jill comes in and just shoots Wesker because, like, she walks in on him about to shoot a kid.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? You shoot Wesker. And it's a fairly fatal wound that Jill has dealt.
Yeah.
Wesker
there is a kind of funny moment where he goes to the ground and he's like, "Valentine, you and that fucking gun." That's a kind of funny thing.
Yeah.
But Chris and Jill run in. Chris immediately runs to Sherry, and she is, like, hugging him, and he's like, oh my god, this guy just shot both of my parents.
Yeah.
So that is a nice little setup where you can tell that, Chris knows her. She immediately is like, "I know you. I can find comfort in her." So this is also a moment where, if you're going to do this version of Wesker, I think this is the best scene for him, where he is like, she says something about, like, we can save you, we'll help you. He's like, "I fucked up."
Yeah.
He knows that he's gone too far.
Yeah,
that's a kind of nice humanizing moment.
Yeah, he has his regrets. And he regrets having betrayed Jill and Chris and Stars, and then he has that nice little moment where he's like, "I would have never pulled the trigger, kid."
Yeah, and he does, even though he, like, looks at Chris, he's like, "I'm sorry, man."
Yeah.
But this is where he does tell them, there is a train that can take you out of here. They're gonna fucking destroy this place at 6 a.m. You have to go. You have to go. You have to get out of here. And then, he apologizes to Chris. He assures Sherry that he was not going to shoot her, despite the fact he did just murder both of her parents in front of her.
Yeah, lots of therapy bills coming.
Oh, yeah. And then at that point, Wesker fucking dies, man. He straight up just, bleh. He's done.
And so, I mean, what else can you do? Jill, Sherry, and Chris just kind of leave.
Yeah, so we do have a few little scenes here where they go to leave. We see Leon and Claire kind of working their way down to the bottom level.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Birkin's body, and he ain't dead.
He's a mutating.
Yep, he's feeling better.
So he's turning into G. Birkin, and this is where the CGI is just at some of its worst.
I honestly think even some of the practical effects on him look kind of bad here.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I think this is one of those things that if I was a makeup artist or a CGI artist and they showed me video game wise what I had to make, I'd probably quit.
Yeah.
Like that, because that is one thing where, especially in the game, he has all of the different forms, and some of them there's just a bit of change between. So yeah, it's not great. He is also very officially into like supervillain mode. So Jill and Sherry are going towards the train, and Chris. The one thing, even rewatching this a few times, I'm not 100% sure why Chris comes back. I don't know if maybe he is like, I can hold him off. Maybe I can defeat him. I don't entirely, because he doesn't say. He just tells them to go.
Yeah,
but they're far enough away. I feel like they could have made it.
I don't know. This entire finale is really forced. They tried to set it up where the whole Birkin and Chris relationship thing earlier on in the movie. Now they're hastily rushing in. Oh, he's become G, and now he's taunting Chris like, "Oh, I never."
Yeah, I hated you. You're stupid.
Yeah.
Your sister's smart, but you're stupid.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that's shitty.
It just feels weird.
It does.
And it's not like Chris is even like the main character of this story, so it's weird to have him have the sort of final mano-a-mano battle.
Well, not really a battle. He hides.
Yeah. Well, he
literally
hides.
So that's where I'm like, okay, maybe he was like, I can keep him at bay. Why would he need to?
Yeah.
Leave.
Yeah.
He's gonna get nuked in 10
10
minutes.
But I don't know. They have a little sort of roundabout where
there's a little like cat and mouse type thing. Where like Chris is hiding right around the corner. Birkin's up on the fence. And he's like kind of like sniffing at him a little bit. You think he's gonna leave, and then he kind of does leave for a minute, and then he knocks it down.
Yeah,
throws him. So there's one of those typical horror movie moments or action movie moments where the bad guy's about to kill the good guy, and then boom, it gets shot. Oh my god. Yeah. So Claire's here.
Saves the day. Says, "Get the hell away from my brother," or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're mending fences while breaking fences.
And there is a moment where she's about to take what they believe to be the final shot, and Chris like takes a shotgun from her, and dude, I gotta give it to him, man. He freaking blows off a good chunk of Birkin's head.
Yeah.
Like sometimes in movies, I'm like, did they really think he was dead? I'm not gonna lie. In this one, I'd be like, that's fair.
Yeah.
I would get them thinking he was dead. This is one of the funniest moments in this, where then Leon walks in the room and Chris aims a gun at him for a minute, and he's like, "Whoa, rookie!" And Leon says, "Yeah, trust me, I'm as surprised as you are, buddy." Like, that's really funny in a fucked up way. Very self-deprecating of Leon.
Yeah. And so after all that, now we get the 6 a.m. title card.
Yeah.
And this is where the destruction of the Spencer Mansion and Raccoon City begin.
Yeah, honestly, from here, like description-wise, the movie pretty much barrels on from here. They all get to the train. Jill and Leon go up front to try to get it started. I do like that Jill looks at Leon and is like, "How do we start it?" Why would you think that but somehow he does. He flips just the right switches and immediately starts turning stuff on.
Yeah.
So they take off. The train is booking. There is something very interesting here about, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, about the way that Raccoon City gets destroyed in this. It's not a big missile. It's not a nuke coming in. It's like the Spencer Mansion self-destructs and just takes the whole town with it.
Yeah, it's just an implosion, basically. Just controlled demolition of the entire city. Kind of.
That poor cow, man. That poor cow deserved better. He was the main character of this movie.
Yeah, there's a cow that flies off.
It's kind of funny.
It's a little funny, but it's also a little...
It's a little messed up.
Yeah.
But they hear a big thump sound on the train. Oh my god, he's not dead.
No, Birkin Birkin's mutated at this point now, and he tears open the roof, comes in.
He looks stupid as shit.
It's awful. It's really bad.
Bad, man.
And he continues to attack. Sherry, again, gonna need loads and loads of therapy after all this. Like, dude, I don't know how she'll function.
Also, the fact that Claire survives this, the hit that she takes where he, like, knocks her and then, like, picks her up, I was like, dude, I feel like you're dead.
Well, that's hardly the only Redfield in
I
this
know.
scene
That's a lot of plot armor, but still.
But there's a little back and forth. Chris is shooting Birkin. And then, all of a sudden, Leon gets his...
Claire stabs.
Claire goes and stabs him in the head.
Yeah, that big old-timer knife that she had earlier.
Yeah.
It's somehow almost like a spring assist knife at this point.
Yeah.
And she flips it out. And the way that they have G designed in this is where the Birkin head is kind of off on the right shoulder a bit. And that's what she decides to stab, not the main head with teeth. She's like, yeah, this little head on your shoulder, stab. But
it's about this point that Leon comes walking in with the customary Resident Evil rocket launcher, and he gets his sort of, I guess, redemption where he shoots the missile. Chris is standing point blank in front of Chris and Claire.
They're right there.
Everybody in this train car should be gone at this point with this explosion. But
I will say, I like that Chris is even like, we were right there, a rocket. And then he's like, where did you get the rocket launcher? And Leon's like, found it in first class. What the fuck? There is nothing else in this train. For the record, if this train, I think that would have been a really simple fix. If they had big crates and shit stacked up, I immediately would have been like, okay, he found it in a crate. No, this train is fucking empty. I mean, it is just a fucking wall of nothing, and he just shows up with a rocket launcher. Also, Jill is, I guess, just... Go ahead, Leon, you got it. To be fair, if he had a rocket launcher, I'd be like, yeah, you got that.
I guess she's watching the train.
Is it hard to keep on the tracks? A lot of steering involved?
I don't know. Once the implosion goes, it gets knocked off the tracks. So.
Yeah, she should have steered better. That's fucked up.
And so after the implosion, you get the cow flying away off the screen. And then you get the
big hero scene.
The big hero scene where everybody's walking out of the tunnel. And you get a little indication that Umbrella or whatever company was paying Wesker potentially. Doesn't have any indication that anybody managed to survive the Raccoon City incident.
Yeah, there's this like typing on the screen about like it's done, number of civilian survivors 0. Yeah. We do see them walk out of the end of the train tunnel, and
that's end credits.
Yeah.
Of course, then we do get a short mid-credits scene.
We both feel so differently about this too.
So I like at the very beginning because you see the body bag kind of rise up. And that's a callback to the opening of Resident Evil 1, where they have this body bag that rises up and then it gets shot and it falls back down.
Yeah.
But here, it's Wesker being brought back to life, but he's, mute. He's been infected now, and so he's stumbling around as one would do if you come back to life.
Yeah, and he's doing this kind of almost weird thing at first, where he's acting like his eyes are just on absolute fire.
Yeah.
And then someone comes into the room. They start talking a little bit. She gives him a pair of sunglasses. So immediately I'm like, oh, that's not the worst reason in the world to explain why Wesker wears sunglasses.
Yeah.
Don't smirk. It's not a terrible reason.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, he's wearing sunglasses in RE1 in the middle of the night because he's evil. So that's a worse reason.
You gotta show him the evil man. But yeah, this is Ada Wong. She does name drop herself here. She is played by Lily Gao, which what's very interesting about this is this movie came out in 2021. She is the voice and I believe even the motion capture for Ada Wong in Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
So she got to play this in live action before she played it in the video game. Got the very signature red outfit. She does state at this point, or they do have a conversation about she is the one that hired him. She does confirm that he died and that they had to do things to bring him back.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is the perfect teaser for a sequel. I like it. I also just really like these two characters in general.
That's fair. I think it was a little heavy-handed.
That's fair.
And it's obvious sequel bait.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It is what it is. I think they do fine with what they got.
Yeah. So yeah, that is Welcome to Raccoon City. As you can tell, we have a lot of feelings about this. Some good, some not good.
Yeah, like we've talked about, we're not going to have to reiterate too much. I think we pretty much said, what we like, what we dislike, what happens. It's okay. It's not something to write home about necessarily.
Yeah. But
I believe they have pretty much greenlit a sequel to this one. And it's going to probably focus on Code Veronica based on what Johannes Roberts has said about wanting what he wanted to do with future sequels.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that.
I think they should have done one of maybe two things. One, done one movie per game.
Yeah.
That ultimately breaks down to the smartest thing to do, because I definitely think the Spencer Mansion stuff, I think if you had just focused on that, I really think you could have taken time, do it on a slow burn, spend some time with characterization. You could have really made that into a fine film.
Yeah.
Or if you do want to mix some of them, I would have mixed 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done. I think it would be a little difficult to have, Mr. X, G, Nemesis, all these big dudes running around.
Yeah.
But if you are going to mix like any of the games that come in subsequent order like that, those are the two that I would do.
Yeah.
It's especially helpful that they happen at the same time.
Yeah.
That's really the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. RE1's events take place 3 months, 2 months before the events of 2 and 3 happen.
Yeah.
So it does, condensing that time space, I can understand why they did it. I don't think it works very well.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not sure if movies are really the right realm for Resident Evil to be told in terms of story. I think if you want to tell the story right and well, it needs to be episodic television, preferably on like an HBO or a streaming service of some sort.
So if you were to see it in that sense, would you want to see like one video game, like Resident Evil 1 would be a season of a show?
Yes.
Or would it be like you have 4 seasons to do everything Resident Evil?
I would do season 1 is the story from RE1. Maybe you sprinkle a little bit of RE0 in there.
I was going to say you could put 0 in there pretty easily.
Season 2 would be 2 and 3 together.
Fair.
Telling the fall of Raccoon City.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, you just tell whatever stories you want to tell from the Resident Evil universe, because there's not really a whole lot of stories for going forward that really take place together at the same time. You'd have to mix and match a little bit.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'd be okay if it's just a 2-season television series that tells the story of Raccoon City.
1, 2, and 3. Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd watch it no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sold on this series at this point. But yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, this movie, I think it's worth a watch. I think it's a good time. It's not the best movie, but there's a lot of good in it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out if you're a Resident Evil fan, or if you just want a decent 1 hour, 40-minute time spent on a horror movie that's not really that scary.
Yeah.
So
I think it would also be kind of nice if I wasn't a Resident Evil connoisseur, but I listened to this episode and then watched the movie. It would be cool to know all the different nods and points and references that we pointed out.
Yeah.
All the Easter eggs and things. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that has been our take on Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And for this episode of Story Proof, I'm Bradley.
And I'm Brendan.
And we'll catch you guys next time.